Miss Astor, you seem to have some misunderstanding about me. I'm Jackson's older sister, Scarlett. Our family has very high standards, which is why I was encouraging him to withdraw from the university. After all, if he has sticky fingers now, stealing small things, who knows what he'll be stealing later. I'm doing this for his own good, not to single him out. Scarlett Pierce tried to sound reasonable, even adding a placating smile. Besides, when you get down to it, we're practically family. I hope you can be understanding. Scarlett had to swallow every ounce of her pride to maintain a respectful posture in front of Lilith Astor. In the normal social hierarchy, she was Lily's senior by age. She was an Astor's sister-in-law. The sister-in-law of Lilith Astor, heiress to the most powerful dynasty in New York City. The thought alone was intoxicating. It would cement her status at the absolute pinnacle of their social circle. But Scarlett wasn't a complete fool. The woman before her was a vision of exquisite, arrogant beauty. A crimson dress clung to her frame, making her look like a flame in human form. The moment she appeared, everything else in the room faded to gray. It was true then. Some people were just born blessed by the gods, perfectly sculpted from head to toe. If Jax had truly survived his wedding night and been thoroughly devoured by Lilith Astor, then maybe it was a blessing Caleb had unknowingly passed on to him. And if that was the case, what right did Jax have to keep stealing Caleb's spotlight? Lily's 10-centimeter stilettos, the color of crushed roses, had straps that wound up her legs like silken vines. The contrast of the fabric against her pale skin was mesmerizing, but only amplified the crushing pressure of her aura. And you think you're worthy of speaking to me as an equal? A scornful smile played on Lily's lips. Only those who knew her well recognized the sign. A storm was about to break. Standing behind Lily, Nathan shrugged inwardly. Better remember to bring a sweater to work tomorrow, he thought. As Lily's cold gaze flicked to him, he stepped forward without a word. In one smooth motion, he grabbed the back of Scarlett's head and forced it down. Ms. Pierce, has swimming in the shallow end of the Pierce family's little kiddie pool rotted your brain? You dare stand straight-backed in front of Miss Astor? Have you forgotten basic social etiquette? The junior defers to the senior. The less successful defers to the titan of industry. You tick both boxes. You bow. With a sharp tug, Nathan yanked Scarlett's hair, using the leverage to force her head lower. My hair. You're just some low-level assistant who couldn't even get a real job. I'm the president of Pierce Financial. Who the hell are you to lecture me? Who I am isn't for you to decide. But acting out of turn in front of Miss Astor, do you think you have 9 lives? Nathan sneered. Even if you did, the Astor dynasty has the means to peel every single one of them off you one by one. Who let this person in? Security. I want an explanation now. I don't care where you found this. This eyesore. Get her out of here. Dean Peterson, seeing Scarlett dare to talk back to the chief aide of the Astor heiress, felt his brief admiration for the talented writer-director evaporate. A truly smart person would never, ever cross Lilith Astor. Scarlett wasn't just crossing a line. She was tap-dancing on a landmine. Nathan had the most forgettable face in the world, the kind you'd lose in any crowd. But for a man like that, to have survived by Lily's side for 5 years meant one thing. He was not someone to be trifled with. By insulting Nathan, Scarlett was just digging her own grave. The Dean made a mental note to light a candle for her later. When Scarlett saw the Dean himself moving to escort her out, she finally broke. Dean Peterson, Pierce Financial has a partnership with Kingston's business school. She threatened. Pierce Financial recruited heavily from Kingston every year. It was a top 3 firm in its sector. The university had always rolled out the red carpet for them. It was a mutually beneficial relationship. But now, she was using it as a weapon. And against the Dean, in this situation, he wasn't impressed. Oh, I don't care what you have a partnership with. If you've offended Miss Astor, you're out. Now, Dean Peterson said, his stance firm. The power dynamic was crystal clear. Who in their right mind would choose a mid-tier finance company over the favor of the city's most formidable heiress? Noisy, Lily said. Her voice was perfectly level, but it carried an innate authority that made Scarlett's heart stutter. The next second, Nathan expertly pulled a large roll of black duct tape from his pocket. With practiced efficiency, he wrapped it tightly over Scarlett's designer face mask, sealing her mouth completely. Heh, Nathan thought, a flicker of nostalgia in his eyes. This used to be exclusively for Jax. When Jax was first dragged to Moonshadow Estate, he was as slippery as an eel, constantly finding ways to escape. One time, he'd even managed to dig a 3-meter tunnel. Nathan had been secretly impressed. With that kind of determination, you could throw the kid in a supermax prison and he'd probably fly out. Jax had turned Moonshadow Estate upside down like a modern-day Monkey King. But no matter how much chaos he caused, he could never escape Lily's grasp. And as her most capable assistant, whenever Nathan caught the runaway, the first thing he did was slap a piece of tape over his mouth. That boy could talk his way out of anything. MMPH. MMPH. Scarlett was nearly suffocating, the tape plastered across her face. Shoo, Nathan chided. Why are you shaking your head like a bobblehead? You enjoying this a little too much? Stand still. Don't be an eyesore for Miss Astor. As he spoke, a wave of private satisfaction washed over him. See? All those hours scrolling memes weren't a waste. A guy my age who's still up on the latest trends? We're a rare breed. Lily rubbed her forehead. When Mr. Sterling was around, Nathan at least pretended to be restrained. Now, he'd gone completely off the rails. She ignored Scarlett and, in front of everyone, strode directly toward the heart of the conflict, towards Jax and Caleb. Jax watched his psycho wife approach. She was radiating a powerful, sultry aura. Her long, wine-red curls gave her a mature, sophisticated look, but her face was still so soft and youthful. Ahem, he thought, if you look closely, you can still see a little bit of baby fat on her cheeks. So soft. Perfect. Oh my God, did you hear the dean? That's her? The legendary Lilith Astor? The monster who supposedly killed her own family in one night. I heard they call her Professor Astor, because even though she's only 20, she was so brilliant she was accepted into a National Science Academy at 16. Damn, someone stopped me from falling for powerful older women, psycho girlfriends, and my professors. Miss Astor is inhumanly beautiful. The last time I saw a body that perfect was in that blurry photo of Jax with that ugly rich woman. As a connoisseur of mature women, this is a 5-star feast. Professor Astor is just magnificent. A brick, thrown by Jax, hit the loudmouth square in the head. It was fast, accurate, and brutal. Magnificent, my ass. Jax snarled. You think you can talk about Professor Astor like that? You perverted creep. Sam Cole ducked his head, fighting to keep a straight face. Jax, my man, he thought. Everyone else is just talking trash. You're the one actually living the fantasy. Jax was still radiating menace when Lily arrived behind him. Student Pierce. Well done. She purred, her voice low. What kind of reward would you like? You can come to my office later to collect it. Jax felt a jolt of electricity shoot through him. He almost let out a primal howl right then and there. Professor, I've only been legal for 2 years. You can't do this to me. Her voice was a deliberate whisper, meant only for his ears. That title, Student Pierce, spoken with such intimacy, was making his mind race. It was so wrong, and so hot. But no matter how much his pulse was hammering, he had to keep a straight face. Until his psycho wife decided to announce their relationship herself, he would let her control the narrative, public or private. His new life motto, wife is always right. Ahem, Jackson, perhaps you could rein in your admirable sense of justice a little, the dean interjected, trying to smooth things over. Seeing the absolute indifference in Miss Astor's eyes, he quickly added, this student spoke out of turn, 20 points off his academic record. Caleb, his face already a bruised mess, felt another wave of despair wash over him. He was slumped over the table, but he forced his head up as Lily and the dean approached. His eyes locked onto the searing red dress, the impossibly alluring silhouette. That's Lilith Astor? The violent, cruel monster of the Astor family wasn't supposed to be like this. She was supposed to be cold and hostile to everyone. But he had just seen it, a clear, sharp look. The way her eyes lingered on Jax was like a spider's silk, intricate and ensnaring. Could it be? Had he really just handed a golden ticket to the top for free to Jax? No. The thought sent a jolt of bitter resentment through Caleb. From the moment Jax had returned to the family 4 years ago, Caleb had systematically taken everything that should have been shared. He had enjoyed it all as his birthright. In his eyes, Jax was nothing but a beggar, a stray they'd taken in. The $300 a month he generously provided for Jax's living expenses was an act of charity. Back when Jax lived in some backwater town or a city slum with his adoptive parents, $100 was probably enough for a month, right? Jax should have been grateful for his magnanimity. He looked up, and his gaze met Lily's. Her eyes swept over him, cool and dismissive. Caleb seized the opportunity. He angled his bruised, colorful face toward her, forcing a weak, pained expression. Lily, we meet again. He began, his voice trembling. I'm so sorry you have to see me like this. But Jax, my brother, he didn't mean any harm. He was just. He trailed off, looking like he was about to shatter. The clear-eyed, naive university students fell for it hook, line, and sinker. Jax must have a violent streak. He stole his own brother's research, made a copy, and thinks he can steal his talent too. Hey, Is it just me, or does Professor Aster keep staring at Jax? It's like she wants to devour him. It's the look a predator gives a cute little lamb. I'm just saying, it's not an innocent look. Aren't Jax and Caleb supposed to be twins? They look nothing alike. Especially now. Jax just needs a little effort, and he's effortlessly handsome. As for Caleb, ugh, never mind, I don't want to be mean. Whoa, did you hear that? Caleb called her Lily. It sounds like they know each other personally, but he didn't even take her elective anatomy class. With her family background, how would Caleb even get the chance to know her? The rumor mill of university students was a force of nature. Some were already trying to ship different pairings from the drama unfolding before them. Help! Does anyone else think Professor Aster's body and vibe looks a lot like that rich woman who was supposedly Jax's sugar mama? The self-proclaimed pure and wholesome campus boys. No, that's impossible. I can accept Jax winning the lottery, but I can't accept him getting the heavenly job of personally servicing Professor Aster. Sam Cole, who knew the whole truth, was about to suffocate from holding in his laughter. Folks, he thought, is it possible that Jax both won the lottery and gets to be tormented in new and exciting ways by a psycho Heiress every day? Faced with Caleb's manipulative performance, Lily simply raised an eyebrow. Meet again, she said, her voice dripping with contempt. Yes, I see you're being a pathetic little bitch again. Are you a masochist? I was worried that after Jax slapped you, you'd get turned on and start licking his hand. Though she was mocking him, her gaze had already settled on the two nearly identical inventions on the table. They were small plastic boxes, clearly some kind of miniature power supply, with a coiled, semi-invisible cable. They looked remarkably unremarkable. A simple, portable battery. At first glance, it was designed to provide a short burst of power in places without outlets. A decent little invention, sure, but research into battery storage and energy conversion was already well established. Jax's design was standing on the shoulders of giants, and this concept was incredibly basic, a prototype at best. Lily only pondered it for a moment, not wanting to interrupt Jax's rhythm. She was trying to trust him, but for now, that trust would only extend to his talent. Her mocking words, sharp and poisonous, made Caleb's face burn with shame, though with his bruised face, no one could tell. Professor, it's called a power bank, Jax explained earnestly. It's portable for convenience and can also connect to a personal Wi-Fi hotspot. He knew the timeline. In his past life, he died late enough to have seen business trends. In this period, power banks were about to explode like a tornado. It was the perfect time for them to boom. He could practically see the money sprouting from the ground, ready to be harvested. Money was only an asset when it was making you more money. Jax needed to move fast to ride the coming wave. Getting rich wasn't the problem. Caleb, who had already read the proposal, stared at Jax in shock, his expression screaming. You're even stealing my lines? Are you that desperate? Jax, brother, why are you saying things that are my proposal? Caleb stammered, turning to Lily. Professor Aster, I have the complete proposal for the power bank right here. The timeline, the entire conceptual framework, it's all clearly laid out. My brother probably just thought it was a fun idea, even if he stole my work. I won't hold it against him. Caleb bit his lip, tears welling in his eyes, playing the part of a magnanimous brother, betrayed but still willing to forgive. It was a pathetic, yet effective performance. Lily, however, found it repulsive. She preferred Jax, so energetic and full of life. Jax, who worked so many odd jobs, had a body that was strong and solid. In short, very powerful, very masculine. A total heartthrob for the older ladies. And Caleb, he had all the sex appeal of a wet noodle. Chloe Vance must have been starving to eat that. Wow, thanks a lot, you goddamn saint. Jax shot back. Just because you say it's your idea doesn't make it yours. Why don't you try calling it by name and see if it comes? Jax's face was stone. Don't think that just because you call me brother, I'll let you lick my boots. And don't be discouraged. You're not out of options. You still have the option to drop dead. A wild, manic grin spread across Jax's face. Screw morality. Time to be myself, Nathan and Sam Cole. The doctor never said the psycho gene was sexually transmitted. The entire student body, oh my God, his mental state is absolutely unhinged. I kind of love it. Heart emoji JPG. Caleb's face twisted in humiliation, his pale lips trembling. Jax, brother, the innocent need no defense. Why are you acting crazy to distract everyone from your mistake? I've already forgiven you, even if you did something wrong. As your younger brother, I won't hold it against you. Caleb's words dragged the focus back to the competition. Lily, after glancing at the two nearly identical devices, said nothing and returned to the judge's table that had been prepared for her. The other two professors on the panel were already annoyed with an outsider like Scarlett Pierce trying to throw her weight around at a serious research competition. Naturally, they were also scornful of this Professor Astor, who looked far too young and unreliable to be taken seriously. This year's National Student Research Competition was hosted at Kingston University, so one judging seat was reserved for a Kingston professor. The other three were from different universities, though one had been bought by Scarlett Pierce. The remaining two were career academics, heads-down researchers who weren't familiar with the name Lilith Astor. But even if they didn't know the name, the moment they heard Astor Dynasty, their hearts skipped a beat. Lily sat down and gave a slight nod to the two professors beside her. She always respected true talent in the academic world. The two professors exchanged a look. This young woman seems quite pleasant. The rumors can't be trusted. We will now begin the product presentations. Each contestant has 3 minutes, the host announced. You may explain the purpose and application of your invention. Of course, the final product must be practical and have real-world applications that can benefit and bring convenience to the public. The theme of this year's competition was commercial core competitiveness. In simple terms, your invention had to be sellable. It needed a market, and it had to genuinely make people's lives easier. Convenience for the public was a nice way of saying it needed to address a widespread, universal need. A less charitable interpretation was that it needed a commercial plan to conquer the market, with the potential for national or even global distribution. University students were at the peak of their creativity. Even if their prototypes were flawed, a recognized idea was a potential goldmine. No savvy business leader would pass up the opportunity of a top-tier research competition like this. Usually, the CEOs themselves wouldn't show up, but they would send teams from their project development departments. If they saw a high-potential invention or idea, they would buy the patent on the spot. And a patent from a university student was a hell of a lot cheaper than one from an established firm. Jax had deliberately entered this national competition for one reason. He knew that one of the contestants who would fail to place today would one day become an unrivaled titan in the AI tech world. That was the kind of talent he desperately needed. One by one, contestants presented their projects. In the audience, members of various corporate teams whispered, estimating budgets and preparing bids for the most promising products, hoping to snatch them up before their rivals could. Soon, it was Caleb's turn. He walked onto the stage and began to present the concept of the power bank. Jax watched with cold eyes. In his past life, he had been expelled from Kingston before he could even participate in this competition. He'd already spent 3 months developing the initial plan and had completed the general design. It wasn't perfect, but it was a highly creative concept with a massive potential consumer base. At the time, Caleb had come to him, lamenting that such a good design would go to waste. He then gallantly offered to enter the competition on Jax's behalf, under his own name, Caleb Pierce. Later, trapped in Moonshadow Estate, Jax received a $300 transfer from Caleb 3 days after the competition. Caleb told him that the power bank design was too simple and had been torn apart by the judges when compared to the more complex projects from the science majors. The $300, he said, was a personal gesture to console his brother, a plea for him not to lose hope. At the time, Jax had been deeply moved. Compared to the measly $300 a month he got from the family housekeeper, it felt like a significant sum. It wasn't until he managed to escape to Sam Cole's place that he learned the truth. Because of his idea's simplicity and wide consumer appeal, numerous companies had wanted the patent. Caleb had instigated a bidding war, ultimately selling at $4,300,000. Even then, Jax had been skeptical of Sam's words. He couldn't believe his own brother, for whom he had given so much of his own blood, would deceive and exploit him. Besides, Caleb was always so kind, wasn't he? Now, reborn, Jax re-examined event after event. Understanding Caleb's true nature, Sam's words from years ago finally hit him right between the eyes. And that concludes my presentation. I believe my creative design, the power bank, will become an essential guarantee for convenient travel for all citizens. Thank you. Caleb finished his speech, his face glowing with feigned passion. The executives in the audience were already buzzing about the concept's viability. On the judges' panel, a professor looked thoughtful. From a research perspective, the design is remarkably simple, but the creativity and the vision for public convenience are quite unique. Scarlett, relegated to a corner on the other side of the field, watched the competition through a pair of binoculars. Seeing Caleb's performance, she couldn't help but smile with pride. Caleb is truly the best, she murmured. Jax, just copying his brother's work verbatim. Let's see how you survive at Kingston now. Suddenly, A dark figure blocked her view. "Scarlett, what are you doing at Kingston?" It was Morgan Pierce, her face grim. The recent leak of internal corporate intelligence and the destruction of several confidential files had become a constant weight on her mind. After learning that Jax might have the original files on a USB drive, she didn't trust Caleb to retrieve it. She had decided to come herself. For some reason, after running into Jax at the hospital, she couldn't stop thinking about the incident 3 years ago, when he had fallen from a ladder, suffering near-fatal fractures. And the banana peel at the bottom of the ladder. A sense of unease gnawed at her. The image of Scarlett, casually eating a banana salad in the living room that day, kept flashing in her mind. Was there really no connection? The more she thought about it, the worse her headaches became. Now, as the eldest sister, she had to solve this mystery herself. "Morgan, you're just in time. That Jax is getting more and more out of control, all because he has some psycho heiress fawning over him. He doesn't even respect me, his own sister," Scarlett complained, her voice dripping with sarcasm. She made no secret of her dislike for Jax. Everyone in the Pierce family knew that Scarlett was the one who clashed with him the most. When Jax was punished, Scarlett was always the most enthusiastic volunteer. She would ask their parents to let her be the one to carry out the discipline, using a cane, a ruler, to teach Jax a harsh lesson. Of course, to the rest of the family, it looked like Scarlett was just a righteous older sister with high standards for her brother. It was Jax who was the disappointment, always failing to meet her expectations, which was why she punished him out of tough love. No one would have ever imagined that a sister would use her position to deliberately and privately torture her own brother. "Wait, Scarlett, I need to ask you something." Morgan's status among the younger Pierce siblings was paramount. As the eldest, she held absolute authority. When Morgan spoke with such gravity, even Scarlett became serious. Morgan explained her suspicions. "Scarlett, did you or did you not deliberately throw a banana peel at the bottom of Jax's ladder? Tell me the truth." Scarlett had been expecting something serious. Hearing it was just about that trivial incident, she shrugged, completely unconcerned. "So what if I did? It was just from the second floor. It's not like it could kill him. I was just playing a little joke on him. It was his fault for wronging me in the first place." Jax, she thought bitterly. If it weren't for that little jinx suddenly coming back to the family, I never would have had that accident. Never would have had my face ruined. Grandma was right. It was all Jax's fault. He was a curse on her. Besides, Jax had plagiarized her screenplay and sold her hard work for pennies. If Caleb hadn't been there to mediate, she would have sent that little stray to prison herself. All she did was play a little prank on him. And look, Jax was still alive and kicking, wasn't he? Just proves what a worthless, resilient little jinx he is. The moment Scarlett admitted, without a hint of remorse, to causing Jax's fall, Morgan snapped. As the eldest sister, she could no longer tolerate it. She swung her hand and slapped Scarlett hard across the face. Crack! The sharp slap sent Scarlett's loosely worn mask flying to the ground. "Scarlett, no matter how much of a screw-up Jax is, he is still our brother." Morgan's voice was shaking with rage. "You can lecture him, you can discipline him, but you cannot have a heart that wishes to harm your own family. You left for your film set, right after he fell. You only knew he was hurt, but do you know what actually happened? He was in the hospital for 2 months. Shards of glass pierced his skin, and he had fractures all over his body. Is that something a sister does to her brother?" Morgan's face was a mask of fury. She had thought it was an accident, but it was a deliberate prank by her own sister. That changed everything. "And Morgan, I really didn't mean for it to be that bad," Scarlett stammered. "I just wanted to teach him a little lesson. Besides, there was grass right below, and it was only 2 stories. He must have been exaggerating how bad it was to get sympathy. It wouldn't be the first time Jax pulled a stunt like that to steal attention from Mom and Dad and the rest of us." Scarlett stood frozen, her words a mix of excuses and accusations, but a growing tightness in her chest made it hard to breathe. A chill spread through her limbs. She bit her lip until it turned white, not even noticing her mask was gone. It was true, she couldn't stand Jax, but she never wanted to kill him. And no matter how awful he was still her blood. "I knew you'd be in denial," Morgan said, her voice laced with pain. "Look, I went to the hospital and got his medical records and the billing statements from that time. Jax wasn't lying. That fall nearly killed him. They even issued a critical condition notice, and not a single family member was there to sign for him. Scarlett, you went too far this time. As your older sister, I want you to go and apologize to him personally. He's just hurt and angry with us right now, but we're still family. I believe he wants to come home. He's just waiting for us to give him a way back." Caleb Pierce is everything you'd expect from a family that invested so much in grooming an heir. His idea is more valuable than any simple research project. This competition is really a stepping stone for students to enter the real world. Caleb's grasp of the market proves he's destined for great things in business. In contrast, look at Jax. First, he's a kept man for some rich woman, and now he's blatantly stealing his own brother's work. People like him. They'll just become a cancer on society. Caleb is genuinely talented. I don't get how someone like Jax ever became student council president. He doesn't deserve it. If Caleb wasn't so frail, Jax would be nothing more than a gopher in the student council. Am I the only one who sees it? The power bank in Jax's hands looks identical to Caleb's, but the materials and design seem much more refined, and it seems to have a portable Wi-Fi feature built in. We all know that with current technology, adding wireless Wi-Fi to a device that also has to store and convert so much power, it's impossible to make it that small. There might be more to Jax's design than meets the eye, a more knowledgeable contestant mused. Both Jax and Caleb were competing outside their majors, so the physics students hadn't really paid them much attention. But surprisingly, Caleb's design was clever enough to make even some of the specialists take a second look. For a business major to even grasp the fundamentals of this kind of research was impressive, and to combine it with market trends and consumer behavior to design a power bank. It wasn't an exaggeration to say he was gifted. Soon, it was the moment everyone was waiting for, to watch Jax crash and burn. The young man had just publicly beaten his sick brother. His character was clearly rotten. They were sure the judges would call him out for plagiarism and send him packing in disgrace. Jax walked onto the stage, cool and confident. He held up his power bank, a defiant, almost cocky look in his eyes. "Sorry to disappoint you all," he said, his voice carrying across the field. "But by the time I'm done, you'll be lining up to apologize to me. Not that I give a damn about your apologies, of course." His arrogance was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Caleb maintained his frail, worried expression, but inwardly, he was already imagining 1,000 ways for Jax to be utterly ruined and cast down into the dirt. "Go on, Jax," he thought. "Be arrogant. Let's see how long you can keep it up. The whole industry is watching. Even if that psycho Heiress protects you, your vile character, your plagiarism, that'll be a stain on you for the rest of your life." With a confident swagger, Jax began to speak. If you remember correctly, the power bank craze would hit its peak in about 6 months. Apex Innovations, the company that bought the patent from Caleb for $300,000 in the previous timeline, would ride that wave to unimaginable profits, eventually breaking into the Fortune 500. He even recalled Caleb regretting not asking for more. But as power banks became common, their flaws became apparent. They weren't portable enough. The rise of fast-charging technology made their slow, charging times feel archaic. Their functionality was too limited. All these were issues that would be addressed in later generations. But at this moment, its very existence was a paradigm shift, and those minor problems were easily overlooked. But Jax's model was different. He held it up for everyone to see. Sam Cole quickly ran on stage and placed a digital scale on the presentation table. "This power bank weighs 200 grams, Jax announced, his voice clear and steady. "It holds a 20,000 milliamp power charge, perfectly meeting consumer demand for portability. It's also a mobile Wi-Fi hotspot, with the batteries charged more than sufficient to power it. Of course, the power consumption for the Wi-Fi is minimal, but the initial R&D for that feature is significant." He clicked a button on the side. A bright light shone out. To enhance its functionality, it also serves as a flashlight. And if it detects a dangerous situation, like a fall, it will automatically switch to a flashing red SOS signal. Jax demonstrated each feature one by one. The effect was stunning. In this era, the concept of a power bank didn't even exist, let alone refined improvement plans. More importantly, Jax had just spoon-fed them the next generation of the product. Businessmen chase profits. They would naturally gravitate toward the superior product with more potential. But no matter how good Jax's improvements were, he would still be seen as just a talented developer, capable of iterative updates. The core innovative concept, the brilliant breakthrough, that was still credited to Caleb. The energetic university students would, of course, rally behind the principle of respecting the original creator. But the businessmen were a different breed. Some had principles, but many more would do anything for a profit. Even if they were interested in Jax's version, they would have to publicly condemn him first. You have to admit, Jax's skills. But what a waste to use that brain for shady stuff. Stealing his own brother's work will be his fatal flaw. Such a shame. Caleb is so pitiful, having a trash brother who steals his credit and then tries to step on him. All his hard work just became a stepping stone for Jax. Caleb's version weighed around 400 grams and only held 10,000 milliamp hours, with no extra features. It was a basic model. But after Jax's slick presentation, look at the way those businessmen are drooling. He basically just gift-wrapped a gold mine for someone else. Caleb watched it all unfold, his hands clenched into tight fists. He felt a dizzying sense of disbelief, which quickly curdled into a bitter, self-pitying sneer. "Brother," he said, his voice laced with manufactured pain, "is this why you asked me for my design ideas beforehand? We're brothers. I would have given you anything you asked for because I trusted you. How could you? How could you do this? Forget it. I forfeit. I withdraw from the competition. You're my brother. I don't want to make things difficult for you." Caleb hadn't expected Jax to have a trick up his sleeve from the very beginning. This wasn't the Jax he knew. The old Jax was completely devoted to Chloe. If she had asked for it, he would have handed over the final, most polished version of the design without a second thought. When had he started holding back? When had he started to suspect him and Chloe? "Wait," a sharp voice cut through the air. "Caleb, I forbid you to withdraw." Morgan Pierce strode forward, her high heels clicking decisively on the ground. She was a vision of professional competence in her tailored business suit, her aura sharp and commanding. Jackson doesn't have the brains to come up with such a brilliant series of improvements. "Jackson, admit it. Who did you steal this from? Or did you pay someone to modify it for you, just so you could use it to humiliate Caleb?" Morgan was always pragmatic. Scarlett had wronged Jax, and, as the eldest, she bore some responsibility for not managing her sister better. But to let Jax publicly humiliate Caleb in front of so many outsiders? That would be a dereliction of her duty as the head of the Pierce siblings. Jax stepped down from the presentation area, his expression radiating a ferocious energy. He looked like he was still spoiling for a fight. The crowd, having just witnessed Caleb's beating, collectively flinched. He wouldn't hit a woman, would he? No way, right? But given his current mental state, they weren't entirely sure. "Morgan, you're really tempting fate, aren't you?" Jax spat, his voice dripping with scorn. "If you love lecturing people so much, why don't you go get a teaching license instead of making a fool of yourself here? Is that head of yours just for decoration? Are you planning on leaving it to someone in your will? I've said it a dozen times. I did not take his design. A brain is a tool for daily use, not an accessory." As he walked toward Morgan, he casually passed by his seat and picked up the bloody brick he'd used earlier, weighing it in his hand. The entire audience, sweating nervously, JPG. Fame and fortune have really changed him. He's becoming a menace. Morgan felt a rare pang of regret, provoking a berserk Jax. She had really stepped in at this time, but as the eldest sister, she had to intervene. She was caught in a difficult position. Scarlett, for her part, was a little more subdued this time. She glanced at Jax with a flicker of hesitation, but seeing his unhinged demeanor, her anger flared up again. "Jax, what are you doing with that brick? You wouldn't dare hit our sister, would you?" She caught herself just in time. She had no doubt Jax had the guts to smash a brick over her head right now. But Morgan had never deliberately mistreated him. He should at least show her some respect. "Jax, Caleb is your brother. This is very difficult for me." Morgan tried to placate him. Jax shot back. "Oh, so you're caught between a rock and a hard place? Morgan, let's make a bet. If Caleb really is the original creator of this design, I'll grant you one request. Anything. But if I'm the creator, you have to post a video of yourself pole dancing in a bikini on all your social media accounts and leave it up for 24 hours. How about it?" Jax knew exactly what Morgan valued most, and his condition was designed to shatter the very foundation of her self-perceived superiority. "Jackson, don't you dare go too far." Morgan's face flushed with anger. She was his older sister. She was elegant, respected, the head of a major financial firm with immense power. How dare he suggest she humiliate herself like that online? He was insane. Scared, Jax taunted, a look of utter boredom on his face. "Looks like you don't have much faith in your precious brother Caleb's integrity after all." He turned and, still holding the brick, started walking toward Caleb, who was just about to step in and protect his sisters. Caleb froze in place. "Jax has completely lost his mind." "Wait, I accept your bet," Morgan declared, her voice ringing out. "Jax, Caleb is a good boy. I watch him grow up. He's always been brilliant, kind, and honest. He would never lie. Before you came back to the family, Caleb was winning all sorts of design awards. But after you returned, our family has been nothing but trouble. Stop pretending, Jax. All this chaos. You planned it all, didn't you?" Morgan stared into Jax's eyes, her expression cold and severe. She was a rational CEO. She never let emotions cloud her judgment. But Caleb was different. Caleb was the brother she adored, the family member she cherished above all others. She chose to believe him unconditionally. As for Jax, he was just some kid from the streets. Clearly, she hadn't been strict enough with his upbringing. Jax was used to the Pierce family's baseless accusations. In the past, he had always held back, compromised, and given in because they were his sisters, his family. Not anymore. He was done playing their game. Sam, plug in the drive. Sam obediently went to the console and inserted the USB drive. This was a special task Jax had given him before the competition. He was dying to know what was on it. When the contents of the drive filled the giant screen, the entire venue fell silent. Jax's mental state for the day: it's my life, I call the shots. If you point fingers at me, you'll end up in a ditch. The giant screen projected a detailed project timeline. The start date was 3 months ago. It included logs of theoretical discussions with Kingston University's most brilliant physics professor, Professor Wallace, along with the initial design and operational procedures. Professor Wallace's involvement was clearly crucial. He was a titan in the world of physics research. Although he was a professor at Kingston, the money he made from the various professional designs he developed with his graduate and doctoral students far exceeded his university salary. At this level, it wasn't uncommon for exceptionally talented professors to have their own companies, with teaching being more of a side hustle. Jax, the students murmured. How did Jax, from a different major, even get on Professor Wallace's radar? If Jax was that capable, he would have been raking in patent money with Wallace for ages. Why was he still living on instant noodles and cheap cafeteria food? After all, Jax had managed to become the student council president as a sophomore, an unprecedented achievement, even with his cringy punk aesthetic at the time. Kingston was full of top students, and the student council presidency was a coveted resume builder, making the competition fierce. When Jax first took the position, almost no one respected him. Many students knew him, and seeing him eating alone in the corner of the cafeteria, they would openly mock him. Hey, Mr. President, why are you living so frugally? Didn't the External Affairs Department just secure a huge investment for the school? What's he trying to prove? I don't believe for a second he's not skimming off the top. He's just putting on a poor student act to look pathetic in front of the faculty. He's really committed to the bit, though eating like that for 3 months. Of course, some of his fellow sophomores defended him. Jax's achievement was a point of pride for their entire year. They would clarify, stop being so jealous. Jax has been eating like that since he got here. He's not faking it. This only made everyone more curious about Jax's family background. When they later found out he was the twin brother of Caleb Pierce from the wealthy Pierce family, they were baffled. Wait, the Pierces are a rich family, right? Why would they treat their 2 sons so differently? But no one wanted to meddle in family affairs. This is the complete design timeline, Jax announced, his voice resonating through the silent hall. Caleb's timeline is correct, as far as it goes, but it's missing a lot of key events and details. For example, his proposal notes a simulation design process on May 3rd, 2 months ago, but I have concrete evidence of his whereabouts on that day. The screen changed. This is security footage from the Fairmont Hotel in downtown NYC, showing Caleb entering the hotel that afternoon, along with his check-in confirmation. And, coincidentally, half an hour after Caleb entered his room, our campus belle, Chloe Vance, entered the very same room. Jax paused, letting the information sink in. This evidence was obtained through a police request as part of clearing my name from a previous false accusation, so it does not violate anyone's privacy. And this isn't the only discrepancy in his timeline. I have more. If anyone wants to see them, I can play them all one by one. Every word Jax spoke was firm and resonant, but his expression was eerily calm. This was a guy who was supposedly Chloe Vance's #1 simp. As the crowd reeled from the shock, they were also amazed. Wait, why isn't he having an emotional breakdown? Had Chloe hurt him so badly that his heart was dead? Was he just burning everything to the ground now, exposing the secret affair between the pure campus belle and his own brother? No way. I don't believe it. Our Chloe Vance is a good girl. She's so kind and pure, she wouldn't even step on an ant. Her character is flawless. Why would she get a hotel room with a guy? Jax, you're just jealous because you can't have her, so you're slandering her and Caleb. Yeah, Chloe is pure and beautiful, and she gets amazing grades. She has countless guys chasing her. Maybe she and Caleb were innocent. Oh, screw it. I can't even finish that sentence. Am I the only one who noticed that Jax actually caught Professor Wallace's attention? I heard Wallace is eccentric and incredibly demanding, even with his own grad students. But he took an interest in Jax, a sophomore. No wonder Jax's improved design has such advanced tech behind it. Creating that first prototype alone must have cost a fortune in manpower and resources. Jax doesn't have that kind of money. Oh, holy crap. Is that why he's been eating instant noodles this whole time? That is next-level dedication. I was the top of my class, and even I can't compete with that. Hey, I resent that remark. Everyone who gets into Kingston was top of their class. In my dorm, we have 2 valedictorians and 2 who got on early admission. The pool of talent at a top-tier university was immense. You might have been the big fish in your small pond, but here, everyone was the best of the best. They were used to being surrounded by geniuses. But Jax, in this arena of academic gladiators, he had just proven himself to be the king of kings. Many students were starting to feel a grudging respect. Getting back on topic, is it really impossible that our pure campus belle went to a hotel with Caleb to study? Right? Right? A chorus of simps' hearts quietly shattering. Study? You mean study a multi-million-dollar business deal? Or study anatomy? The Campus Belle's fan club was having a full-blown meltdown. Chloe Vance, who had been standing in a corner, felt the world collapse when Jax displayed the security footage. She froze, a chilling coldness creeping from her head to her toes. It felt like her lungs were filled with cotton. Fear was an invisible hand gripping her throat. Her face went deathly pale, and her hands began to tremble. "No, I didn't," she cried out, her voice thin and reedy. "Jax, turn it off. That's slander. You are violating my privacy." Chloe bit her lip, shaking her head, trying to project an image of a victim of a terrible misunderstanding. But the evidence was right there, no matter how she tried to explain it. As long as that video existed, even a denial would be met with endless speculation. The legions of guys who had worshipped her from afar, who thought she was an untouchable goddess, would now see her differently. What pure goddess? She's already sleeping around. Why pretend? If he can have her, then maybe I can too. Chloe looked pleadingly toward Caleb and the Pierce sisters, desperate for help. Unlike them, her family's fortune had dwindled, but she had grown accustomed to the life of a popular, admired socialite. To feed her vanity, she needed a constant stream of men willing to dote on her, to fund her image as a pure and noble campus belle. Now, in an instant, it was all gone. "Jax," she thought, tears streaming down her face. "Is this because of me? Did his love for me turn to hate, and now he's trying to destroy me?" She felt her legs give way, and she would have collapsed if Jessica hadn't been there to catch her. "Chloe, don't be afraid," Jessica whispered in her ear, steadying her. "If you two are dating, getting a room is perfectly normal. Besides, Caleb is the sole heir to the Pierce family fortune. Now is the perfect time to lock him down." A mocking smirk flickered across Jessica's face. "TSK. Jax, I really underestimated you." She found herself growing more and more interested in her best friend's ex-boyfriend. Meanwhile, Caleb and his sisters were in shock. The 2 sisters' faces turned to ice. They felt as if they'd been plunged into a frozen lake. Their first thought wasn't even about Caleb and Chloe in a hotel room. It was, "Caleb lied to us." The timeline on his proposal didn't match his actual whereabouts, which meant Caleb was the liar. He was the one who had stolen Jax's project. They had all misunderstood Jax. They had become the weapons Caleb used to hurt him. Morgan stumbled, her high heel twisting beneath her. "No, that's impossible. Caleb, you lied to us." But what terrified her even more was the bet she had made with Jax. Pole dancing in a bikini? That was no different from being a stripper. She was a refined, powerful CEO. How could she ever show her face in the business world again? Crack! Morgan slapped Caleb hard across the face. She had disciplined Jax many times, slapped him more than once. But this was the first time in her life she had ever struck Caleb. Her heart ached with a sharp, wrenching pain. It was the pain of disappointment, mixed with the terror of the punishment she now faced. "Morgan, don't hit him," Scarlett cried out, rushing to Caleb's side. Caleb must have had a reason. The video only shows them entering the hotel. Maybe they were just studying in the room, doing homework together. The entire crowd of onlookers collectively dropped their jaws. "Are you serious, lady? Your grip on reality is even more tenuous than Jax's." "Caleb, explain yourself. What's going on?" Morgan's voice was strained. "I have always trusted you. But today, you've pushed me to the brink of ruin." She was heartbroken. She had watched Caleb grow up, and while Jax was also her brother, the years of separation made a difference. You can't fake a bond that was never there to begin with. People are emotional, and favoritism is often unconscious. But she had always told herself she was the eldest, that she had to treat all her siblings equally. The force of Morgan's slap made Caleb's ears ring, and a trickle of blood ran from the corner of his mouth. He quickly covered his lips, trying to swallow the bitterness and humiliation. "Morgan, Chloe and I," he began to explain, his mind racing. How did Jax switch the files on the USB drive he had given to Chloe? He was certain that, given Jax's devotion, the drive would have contained the final, most advanced version of the power bank design, the one Jax had just presented. He was always meticulous. He would have checked the USB drive before his presentation. But people often skim over less important details. The core of the proposal was the design, structure, and feasibility. And yet, somehow, Jax had used this tiny, insignificant detail to set a trap for him. Now he was cornered. Suddenly, Jax wasn't stupid anymore. "I'm so sorry, Morgan," Chloe interjected, her voice trembling. "Caleb and I have actually been together for a while. It's just that my parents are very strict about my studies and relationships. That's why we kept it a secret. We're still young, and we wanted to focus on our education and careers. We didn't do anything in the hotel room. We just wanted a quiet place to study for our grad school entrance exams. You know how crowded the Kingston Library gets." But Jackson misunderstood. He thought we were involved in some kind of sordid affair. "I'm actually a very traditional girl. I want to save my first time for my wedding night. So please don't hit Caleb." He was only silent because he didn't want me to be misunderstood. Chloe's speech was a masterclass in portraying herself as a pure, noble victim. It might have worked on children, but she was speaking to university students. They weren't idiots. They didn't buy it for a second. Yet, Chloe's brainwashing skills were top-notch. Soon, some of her simps began to waver, their envy for Caleb renewed. Of course, a pure campus belle would want a pure love. Just having the title of Chloe's boyfriend was enough to make them weep with envy. Jax watched this performance with a flicker of contempt in his eyes. Chloe traditional? That was the most ridiculous joke he'd heard all year. "I don't care what your relationship is," Jax cut in, his voice sharp. "One of you takes the USB drive with the backups of my design, and the other blatantly claims it as their own, then turns around and frames me as the thief. Nice teamwork. You two must have been practicing that for years to get that kind of synergy." His words drew snickers from the crowd. Chloe Vance was looking less and less like a goddess. First, the incontinence incident, now getting caught in a hotel with a man. Was there any other campus belle with such a string of embarrassing scandals? Soon, posts began appearing on the Kingston University forums, demanding that Chloe be stripped of her title. A poll was created. The jilted simps, their hearts broken, became the main force calling for her downfall. The very people who had passionately campaigned to put her on that pedestal were now the ones tearing her down. But that was a story for later. Caleb's design timeline didn't add up. That was now a fact, set in stone. The ugly truth of him stealing Jax's work had been exposed. A tidal wave of condemnation crashed down on him. At the same time, thanks to some funding from Jax, Sam Cole had already started buying up social media influencers to spread the video of Morgan losing the bet. Sometimes, the best way to destroy someone isn't to kill them. It's to shatter their spirit, to strip them of everything they pride themselves on. For someone as arrogant as Morgan, the taste of public humiliation and falling from grace would be a fate worse than death. Jax would not forgive anyone who had pushed him into hell in his past life. Lily had been sitting on the judges' panel the entire time, still as a mountain. The hem of her fiery red dress spread out around her like a blazing fire. Her dark red curls fell against her cheeks, a stark contrast to her snow-white skin and crimson lips. It was a decadent, unrestrained beauty, like that of a fallen angel. She sat there quietly, radiating an aura of absolute dominance that inspired both awe and fear. She had watched the whole farce unfold like a disinterested spectator, making no move to intervene. Nathan stood dutifully behind her, a hint of confusion on his face. Something's not right, he thought. If this were the old Lily, seeing Jax and Chloe in the same frame would have sent her into a full-blown psychotic episode. Today, she's terrifyingly calm. "Nathan," Lily said suddenly, her voice low, "when do you think Jax started planning this? This level of calculation. It couldn't have been a recent development. He did all this right under my nose, and I didn't notice a thing." "Nathan, is Moonshadow Estate staffed entirely by useless trash?" She looked up at him, her eyes suddenly sharp as blades. The air around them seemed to freeze. A terrifying glint shot from her eyes, and not just Nathan, but everyone within a 20-meter radius held their breath. "Nathan, shit. Save me, Jax. It's over. She's coming for me." He was panicking internally, but his face remained a stoic mask, though only he knew how stiff it had become. He dropped to his knees in an instant. "Miss Astor, it was my failure. I will report to the water cell for punishment tonight." Lily looked at his terrified expression and suddenly lost interest. She propped her chin on her hand, idly enjoying his fear. Look at him, she thought. Nathan has been with me for so many years, and he's still terrified of me. Jax has only been here for a week. How could he have changed? How many other things has he hidden from me? Punishment? she drawled. The water cell is full. It's not your turn. Let's try something else. Go and have a custom collar made for me. I want it encrusted with pink diamonds. And if Jax doesn't like it, you can still have your punishment. Lily leaned back lazily, a strange itch in her hands. She wanted to grab Jax's neck, to press him down into this very chair and kiss him until he was breathless, until he could only gasp her name, obediently saying whatever she taught him to say. Ms. Pierce, our bet still stands. I'm sure your employees are eagerly awaiting your performance, Jax said, his words designed to twist a knife. For a CEO to perform such a vulgar dance, the most devastating part would be the complete collapse of her authority in front of her staff. It was the ultimate humiliation. Morgan was desperate. She looked at Jax, trying to appeal to their family bond. Jax, I know there have been many misunderstandings between us, including Scarlett causing your accident. I only just found out about that, and I'll bring her here to apologize to you personally. I understand that you're angry with us, but we're still family. If I'm disgraced, wouldn't that disgrace the entire Pierce family, including you? Come on, Jax, don't be so stubborn. Isn't a public apology for me enough? Morgan felt the sting of shame, but she had publicly made the bet and sided with Caleb. If she did nothing, it would reflect poorly on Pierce Financial. So, she proposed a compromise. Jax looked at her and remembered. Lying in a hospital bed, his body shattered, unable to pay the medical bills, on the verge of death. Not a single family member had come to see him, let alone pay for his treatment. He only had $300 a month to his name, which was why he had worked himself to the bone, studying for competitions and taking any manual labor job he could find. But because he was also supporting his goddess, Chloe Vance, he had almost no savings. Just when he thought he was going to die in that hospital, they had suddenly agreed to treat him for free, moving him to a top-tier private room. At the time, he was too weak to refuse or even question it. He couldn't imagine who would help him. He had spent 2 agonizing months in that hospital, drifting in and out of consciousness. At night, he would often feel a suffocating presence, as if a giant snake were coiling around him, its touch soft and cold against his skin. It moved over every inch of his body, a disturbing sensation that made his mind scream even though he couldn't open his heavy eyelids. He had just turned 18, having only recently returned to the Pierce family. He had never experienced anything like that suffocating, paralyzing feeling. He fought to open his eyes, his knuckles white with effort, but the snake wouldn't let him go. His hospital gown was lifted, and an icy, soft touch traced over his chest, his abs. The snake seemed intelligent, avoiding his healing wounds, but the feeling of being completely helpless, of being toyed with, was infuriating. Jax was numb. It felt like the beginning of a long nightmare. After 2 months of this haze, he was able to walk again, though not fully healed. He fled the hospital as fast as he could, convinced that his room was haunted by some kind of succubus that fed on men's life force. No wonder the hospital had treated him for free. They were probably using him as a sacrifice. And now, Morgan was bringing up that accident, saying Scarlett was responsible? He thought. Of course. He had checked the ladder stability before he climbed it. It couldn't have slipped by accident. It had been Scarlett. So, Jax said, not bothering to refuse her offer just yet. How exactly do you plan on apologizing, Miss Pierce? He wanted to see how far she would go to avoid her punishment. I'm sorry, Jax, Morgan said, stepping forward. Her posture was still proud and cold. Her apology was that of a superior to a subordinate. In her mind, the moment she said the words, I'm sorry, Jax was supposed to graciously forgive her. But after she spoke, Jax remained silent. Jax, you're supposed to say, it's okay. Morgan's face stiffened. She couldn't believe he was leaving her hanging like this in front of everyone, making her look like a fool. Scarlett couldn't take it anymore. Jax, Morgan has personally apologized to you. Don't be so shameless. She then turned to Caleb, her expression softening as she saw his miserable, wounded face. A pang of pain shot through her, and she gently patted his back. Caleb, don't be sad. I know you only did this because Jax's return to the family made you feel insecure, right? I'm sorry. We failed as sisters to give you the security you needed, and that's why you did this foolish thing. Don't worry. No matter how Kingston University handles this, I will protect you. The stark difference in how Scarlett treated her 2 brothers was breathtaking. Even with a mask on, her ugliness was impossible to hide. Caleb looked up, his eyes shimmering. A single, perfect tear rolled down his cheek. He looked so pitiful, so wronged. Scarlett's heart felt like it was breaking. Caleb is so kind, she thought. He was forced to do this terrible thing because of Jax. He must be filled with guilt and torment. Isn't that punishment enough? Jax has made countless mistakes. Caleb only made one. It's obvious who I should protect and who I should blame. TSK, Scarlet, you only have one face. You should try to use it more sparingly, Jax sneered. Who says I have to accept her apology just because she gave one? Maybe I just like the sound of her talking. If you don't like what you see, gouge out your eyes. If you can't hold your tongue, so your mouth shut. There are always more problems than solutions, and idiots are always full of complaints. He turned his glare on Caleb. And you, stop hiding behind a woman. If you're going to cry, cry louder. I can lend you a megaphone. Who are you mourning for? Did your dad die? Or your mom? The verbal assault left Scarlet and Caleb speechless. Hearing Jax curse their parents, his parents, made a vein throb in Scarlet's temple. Jax, our parents are your parents too. How can you say something like that? Do you have any concept of filial piety? Caleb is already crying with regret, and Morgan has apologized. What more do you want? For us to get on our knees and kowtow to you? Jax, let me give you a piece of advice. In life, you should know when to take a step back. Don't push people too far. Her words were a cocktail of moral blackmail and veiled threats. In their world, children were supposed to respect their parents. What Jax had said was utterly disrespectful. Someone who disregarded even the bonds of family was cold-blooded, no different from an animal. Jax grinned. Take a step back and find a whole new world? You go ahead and take a step back. I'm not moving. Oh, and I'm so scared of pushing you too far. Why don't you go jump off a building right now? Scarlet felt another wave of rage. Only a corner dog jumps over a wall. He was calling her a dog. Mr. Dean, Jax said, turning to Dean Peterson with a casual, mocking tone. Now that it's clear who stole from whom, am I still the rat turd you mentioned? He was forcing the dean to act, to punish Caleb right here and now. Ahem, of course not, Student Pierce. The dean stammered. I was angry and spoke out of turn. I apologize. Jax just gave him a cold, dismissive look. The dean sighed. This kid is forcing me to offend the entire Pierce family. But the Pierces, as difficult as they were a lot easier to deal with in the Astor dynasty. Caleb Pierce, the dean announced, his voice firm. You have stolen a fellow student's design, fraudulently claimed credit for it, and then slandered the original creator. This is a severe offense. I am announcing that I will convene the university board immediately to process your expulsion. As for you, Chloe Vance, you were an accomplice. You will receive a major demerit on your record, and you will be responsible for cleaning all the women's restrooms on campus for 1 month. Chloe's face went white. Her legs gave out, and she crumpled to the ground. There was an unwritten rule for the Kingston campus belle selection. She had to have a clean family background and an impeccable character, with no scandals. Now, Chloe was no longer clean. Her reputation, her academic record, and in everyone's eyes, her body were no longer pure and flawless. The innocent, pristine image she had cultivated for years, in that single moment, had completely shattered. Expulsion was a consequence Caleb had never imagined. His breathing became rapid and shallow, and it felt like the world was tilting. And then it did. His already weak body, plagued by illness, swayed, and as if guided by an invisible hand, he collapsed in the direction of his most adoring sister, Scarlet. Scarlet was still in a state of shock. Her first instinct was to catch him, but her mind froze. The memory of Caleb's confident assurances that the design was his own flashed through her mind. While she had chosen to accept his necessary misdeeds, the moral compass inside her wavered. It was only a moment's hesitation, but it was enough. She didn't catch him. Caleb hit the ground hard. The back of his head slammed against the concrete, and he winced in pain as he felt a warm, wet sensation. He tried to open his eyes, but his vision blurred, and then everything went black. For a moment, Morgan and Scarlet panicked. Years of coddling him had conditioned them to prioritize his health above all else. All thoughts of his crime vanished. Morgan was the first to rush forward, dropping to her knees on the ground without a second thought for her image. She wanted to move him, but knew she shouldn't, her eyes wide with frantic worry. Caleb, what's wrong?" she cried. "Quick, Scarlet, call an ambulance. We can't delay with his condition. Jax, you're coming with us to the hospital. Caleb is bleeding. He needs your blood." Morgan said it so naturally, as if Jax's contribution was an absolute, unquestionable duty. Jax watched the scene unfold, his expression as cold as ever. Caleb had faked illnesses so many times that he couldn't be bothered to play along. But if this time was real, well, he'd have to break out the champagne and celebrate. The manipulative bastard finally had a taste of his own medicine. It was beautiful. Oh, he needs it? And what the hell does that have to do with me? Jax said, raising an eyebrow. You look like you're auditioning for sainthood. If he needs blood, go find it at a blood bank. You're asking me? Are you hoping for another one of my special transfusions? His voice was laced with a chilling reference to the pig's blood incident. You know, I still have the video from last time. If everyone's curious, I don't mind sharing it. His threat hung in the air, sharp and clear. In his past life, he had been trapped by moral and familial obligations. This life, he had no morals. No one could trap him again. Jax, he's your brother. Scarlett began, her voice hesitant. She knew she should apologize for the latter incident, which Morgan had now exposed. But every time she looked at Jax, at his defiant, I'll take on the world attitude, the words stuck in her throat. The old Jax was so timid. He would have forgiven her without her even having to ask. He never held a grudge. Don't. Jax cut her off. I have completely severed ties with the Pierce family. If you don't understand, or if anyone here doesn't understand, you can see the severance agreement for yourselves. Coincidentally, I also put a copy on this USB drive. Let's project it for everyone to see. On the big screen, the severance agreement appeared, with Jax having highlighted the date in red. It was from just a few days ago, right when he was at the center of the media storm, nearly expelled from Kingston because of Caleb's machinations. At that time, when he was the one being slandered and robbed of his accomplishments, not a single family member had trusted him. They had thrown him out. And now, what right did they have to demand he give blood to the very person who had orchestrated his downfall? The Kingston students were not stupid. A wave of outrage swept through the crowd, and they began to shout down the Pierce family for their shamelessness. Morgan and Scarlett, who had never faced such public condemnation, turned pale. When the ambulance arrived, they scurried away with Caleb, their tails between their legs. Chloe, left alone, had already taken the opportunity to flee in tears. Jax didn't dwell on his victim status. The matter was settled. It was time to lay the groundwork for his career. The CEO, who had recognized the potential of the power bank in his past life, approached him, his face radiating sincerity. He offered him $300,000 for the patent, the same number as last time. Jax knew it was coming, but a collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Wow, his design is incredible, and the market potential is huge. But for a university student to sell a patent for $300,000? Do you know what that means? Jax is going to be rich. Forget supercars. He'll be flying private jets soon. The top prize for this competition is $20,000. Jax just made 15 times that with one deal. When did he get so smart? Did that rich woman bring him good luck? Sam Cole practically drooled with envy. His boy Jax had finally made it. $300,000 was a massive amount of startup capital for a university student. And most importantly, this money wasn't from selling his body. It was from his own hard work and research. Everyone thought Jax should be satisfied. But Jax met the CEO of Apex Innovations, Mr. Hughes, with an unyielding gaze. I want $5 million, he said, his voice calm and firm. And that's for a 5-year patent license. After that, we'll renew the contract with a professional equity stake. We'll have a 60-40 split of the profits. You agree, we can sign the contract right now. If not, no hard feelings. Jax spoke with the cool confidence of a seasoned negotiator. Too many student patents were bought for a pittance by predatory companies, the original creators never even getting credit. Jax wouldn't make that mistake. He needed money, a lot of it, enough so that he would never have to feel like he was hopelessly out of Lily's league. His wife was too powerful. He couldn't just be her kept man. He wanted people to see him as her equal, a man who deserved to stand by her side. The contestants looked at him like he was insane. $5 million for a 5-year license, and then a 60% stake in the profits? He might as well just rob a bank. Mr. Pierce, Mr. Hughes said, a condescending smile on his face. I can't deny your talent. But remember, you're just a sophomore. My offer of $300,000 is a sign of my appreciation and recognition, not an invitation for you to get delusions of grandeur. Besides, an 80-20 split is considered generous in this industry. What makes you think you're worth 40% of my profits? Mr. Hughes was a shrewd businessman with a keen eye for opportunity. This was just a negotiating tactic, a way to test Jax's mettle. Jax stood straight, his expression unwavering. You misunderstand, Mr. Hughes, he said. I don't want 40%. I want 60%. 60 for me, 40 for you. The entire hall erupted in stunned silence. This kid has some serious balls. Mr. Hughes was taken aback. He never expected to be strong-armed by a wet-behind-the-ears sophomore. He truly believed in the product's potential. But without the backing of a major corporation, the technology would be worthless in Jax's hands alone. He had been prepared to go up to $5 million if Jax had just asked for a full buyout. After all, Jax had revealed that the project had the backing of the renowned Professor Wallace. A regular student, he could dismiss. A student personally mentored by Professor Wallace? That was a different story. Mr. Hughes' frown caught in a dilemma. Jax, your terms are outrageous, he said, trying a different tack. I doubt anyone else here is prepared to make you a serious offer. Look, I'm not trying to take advantage of you. $5 million for the full, final rights to your patent. How about that? You should be satisfied with that, Jax. No one here will offer you a higher price. Apex Innovations was a mid-sized company, but the mass-market success of the power bank was what would propel Mr. Hughes to tech mogul status in the future. Right now, there was nothing else like it on the market. From his future perspective, Jax was looking at a wide-open blue ocean. His terms weren't an attempt to fleece Apex Innovations. They were a generous offer to share a piece of the future fortune. In that case, we have nothing more to discuss, Jax said, his tone final. Mr. Hughes, the door is over there. He didn't waste any more time on him. Even as the other students stared, mouths agape, certain that Jax had just thrown away the opportunity of a lifetime. Jax didn't care. If Apex Innovations wanted to pass up this golden opportunity, he would happily take it for himself. Or he could give it to his dear wife to expand her business empire. I'll offer $10 million. The voice cut through the stunned silence, clear and imperious. It was Lily. I'm very fond of Mr. Pierce's design, she continued, a faint, dangerous smile playing on her lips. The Astor Group already has a division in the electronics sector with a fully developed production line. But more importantly, I have a great appreciation for student Pierce himself. As for the patent split after 5 years, Mr. Pierce will take 80%. The Astor Group will take a modest 20% commission. I wonder, Mr. Pierce, would that be acceptable to you? Lily's epic intervention stunned the room. Her business acumen was legendary within the industry. In just 2 years, she had pushed the Astor dynasty to even greater heights. For a young upstart to outmaneuver a room full of old guard executives was a feat that commanded respect and fear. Mr. Hughes, who had been planning to deliberately lowball Jax to get the patent on the cheap, felt his world tilt. Miss Astor is interested in the power bank's potential too? Or is she just interested in Jax? He was reeling. His mid-tier company was nothing compared to the Astor dynasty. But to be so publicly outmaneuvered by Lilith Astor, he was in his 50s. He had connections. He had even done business with Lily's father back in the day. He remembered seeing her as a child, a perfect little doll in a gothic Lolita dress, surrounded by servants. She was a beautiful, but lifeless, showcase for the family's prestige. Little Miss Astor, what is the meaning of this? He demanded, trying to pull rank. This was my project. Is this how your father taught you to disrespect your elders? He had heard rumors about what she had become, but in his mind, she was still just a 20-year-old girl, a puppet for a powerful family. How formidable could she really be? Lily's gaze, which had been softly fixed on Jax, hardened. The ambient warmth in her eyes vanished, replaced by a churning, dark tide. She didn't want anything that belonged to him to fall into another's hands. Her appreciation and adoration for him had only deepened after seeing his design. The thought of possessing his creation was like possessing his very thoughts, a feeling she savored. And now, this relic was defying her and bringing up the old man who disgusted her most. Nathan's scalp tightened. Calling Miss Astor Little Miss Astor was a death wish, he thought. The man was tired of living. Snatching. Lily's voice was ice. In business, it's called outbidding the competition, not snatching. I suggest, Mr. Hughes, that you find a nice coffin and lie down in it before that mouth of yours bankrupts you. Lily's reply was merciless, a public slap in the face. But the Astor dynasty had the power to crush Apex Innovations without breaking a sweat. Hughes was livid. He had been a titan in his youth. He had known the Astor family for decades. And this little brat, this puppet, dared to humiliate him? Lilith, who do you think you are? You're just a little monster the Astor family created. You try to kill your own brother and father, threw the whole family into chaos. Do you really think you deserve to control the Astor fortune? If it weren't for your bloodline, for the wealth your family built over a century, you'd be nothing. He spat out the words, fueled by years of resentment and a misplaced sense of authority. He couldn't stand that this young girl was treating him, a respected elder, with such contempt. It was no wonder her own mother had callously thrown her into the heirs conclave to curry favor with other powerful families. Who knew if she was even clean after all these years? She was probably passed around and humiliated by all those future global leaders. She was only 12 at the time, wasn't she? Lily's eyes turned to ice. The moment he mentioned her past, he was a dead man. In the next instant, a crimson scythe flew through the air. Before anyone could react, the sound of hundreds of disciplined footsteps echoed through the hall as black-clad bodyguards swarmed in. surrounding the entire venue. The side sliced off Mr. Hughes's ear before returning to Lily's hand. The woman in the red dress stood up, her high heels seeming to tread on a pool of blood. She tilted her head, her expression blank, but an immense pressure crushed down on everyone present. "Monster," she said, her voice dangerously soft. "Mr. Hughes seems very nostalgic for his friendship with Ronan Astor. He's been catatonic in a hospital bed for 2 years now. If you'd like to join him, you only had to ask. I'm always happy to grant a dying wish." "Oh, why are you on your knees, Mr. Hughes? Are your legs feeling a bit superfluous? Don't worry, I can take care of that for you." A crimson light flared in her eyes, and for a moment, she was back in that night, the night she had purged the Astor family, surrounded by endless pleas for mercy. But the only voice she could hear was her mother's, cold and detached. "Lilith, why did you come back alive? You should have died in the organization, like your sister. It would have been better that way. You wouldn't have to live in fear of the Astor women's 25-year curse. Lily, darling, I'm doing this for your own good. Why don't you just kill yourself now? Don't blame your father, Lily. Without him abandoning you, you never would have become so strong, would you?" Lily's heart had died that night. The slaughter was inevitable. Jax watched the situation spiral out of control, saw the terror on everyone's faces as they looked at Lily's demonic state. But he only felt pain for her. In his past life, he had been one of them, one of the terrified crowd. They saw the monster, but they never cared to ask what had made her one. The crowd scattered in a panic. But this time, Jax walked against the tide, toward the epicenter of the danger. He pulled a fruit knife he had tucked into the back of his waistband. He was dressed in a clean, white shirt, looking pure and noble. The next second, his hand moved in a flash. He plunged the knife straight into Mr. Hughes's thigh. The motion was clean, decisive. Before Hughes could even register the pain, Jax pulled the knife out and stabbed him in the other leg. Mr. Hughes's scream echoed through the now silent hall. The fleeing crowd dared to look back and were nearly paralyzed by the sight. Holy shit, they all thought. No wonder Jax has what it takes to land a woman like that. That's one hell of a loyalty pledge. We bow to his superior skills. Jax stood over Mr. Hughes, the visceral feeling of the blade sinking into flesh still tingling in his hand. He felt no fear, only a sense that this punishment wasn't nearly enough. Mr. Hughes stared up at him, his eyes wide with disbelief. He couldn't comprehend that this sophomore, this ordinary student who needed prize money to get by, had just stabbed him through both legs. How'd he dare? "I will not allow anyone to say a single bad word about Lily," Jax said, his voice low and intense. "Lily is not a monster. She's just a little girl who's been hurt. None of you, who have never experienced her pain, have the right to judge her for anything." Jax knew Lily's past intimately. In both this life and the last, she had been frighteningly honest with him, a product of her obsessive love. But she was also terrified of scaring him away. So, she would only share glimpses of her dark past on the nights she recaptured him after one of his escape attempts. She would lock him in a dark room, chain him up, and then, shedding her dirted dress, she would whisper her secrets. Lily loved to wear Lolita dresses, not because she liked dressing as a doll, but because he suspected she longed to return to a time when she was her parents' cherished little princess. But was that love ever real? Lily, holding her bloody scythe, walked toward them. When she heard Jax's words, she paused, a bright, crystalline smile blooming in her eyes. "Jax," she said, her voice like a child tattling on a bully. "He's mean." The beautiful, terrifying demoness seemed to shed her thorny armor, leaning on him for support. She trusted Jax, and only him. "I know," Jax said, his eyes meeting hers with a serious, sincere gaze. "Then we'll just have to remove his tongue. Then he won't be able to say things that upset you anymore." He felt his own sanity start to fray at the edges, a consequence of spending so much time with the psycho Heiress. But to his surprise, he liked it. This life, the only lives that mattered were his and Lily's. "Emma Mitchum, you're so good to me, Jax," she murmured. "He's bad. He called me a monster." Lily, holding the hem of her blood-stained dress, drew closer, her body like a magnet pulling her to him, desperate to merge with him completely. Jax instinctively wrapped an arm around her slender waist. Being comforted by a psycho Heiress was surprisingly exhilarating. She was usually the one in control, but now she was clinging to him as if handing him the reins. Besides, no matter how mature or unhinged she was still just a 20-year-old girl. Her complaining voice was soft and sweet, a stark contrast to her stunning, powerful appearance. "Okay, then we'll just have to get rid of him," Jax said, a manic glint in his eyes. "Chop him into little pieces, bury him in the garden." He was comforting his psycho girlfriend, and he was glowing with pride. Lily was very pleased with his performance. She crooked a finger at him. Jax, bend down. He obeyed without hesitation. Moi, I love you. A sweet, simple kiss landed on his cheek. It wasn't a deep, soul-searing French kiss. It was a light touch, but Jax felt his bones melt. Oh God, Lily's sweetness is going to drive me crazy. Mr. Hughes, bleeding out on the floor. You too. Jax, are you insane? I was the one who saw your talent, who made you an offer. I was your benefactor, and you repay me like this? You're not afraid of retribution, just like her. She's a monster. She's destined to be unloved by her parents. She's a heartless, cold-blooded lunatic. You think you won her favor now, that a little money and power is a gift? Believe me, a psycho like her will turn on you and kill you eventually. You'll end up just like me. He couldn't believe Jax was using him as a tool to impress Lily. The unfairness of it all was maddening. This kid had just stabbed him through both legs, his actions brutal and efficient, nothing like a university student. And yet, the way he was now, being so gently kissed by Lily like an obedient puppy, the contrast was jarring. Was he just that good of an actor? Oh, monster, Jax said, his voice deceptively casual. It seems Mr. Hughes still hasn't learned how to speak properly. That tongue. Why don't we donate it to the general for a new dish? Chilled pig's tongue salad, perhaps. The warmth in his eyes was gone, replaced by a chilling coldness. Lily was his woman to protect. No one was allowed to insult her. This man, Mr. Hughes, had only gotten the chance to become a tech mogul in the last life because he had fed off Jax's talent. Now, Jax was taking that golden ticket back. In the future, there would be no Apex innovations. There would only be a new subsidiary of JX Tech. And whatever Jax says, Lily cooed, her voice soft and elegant. Jax is the man of the house. The manic energy that had been roiling inside her had completely dissipated the moment Jax had come to her side. Since it's food for the general, have him dragged away. Her smile was like that of a contented calico cat, her eyes sparkling. She felt like she could never be close enough to Jax. But as she took his hand, she felt how cold his fingers were, and a dark shadow passed through her eyes. Nathan's internal alarm bells went off. Oh no, is she losing it again? But Jax is right here, calming her down. What went wrong? The National Student Research Competition thus came to a dramatic end. Jax, a non-major, had taken third place, clearing his name and securing his spot at the university. But the rumors about him only intensified. Jax must have incredible stamina to be able to handle two rich women at once. He's a master of time management. He deserves to be rich. Of course, most of this was just idle gossip. The students had been so terrified by the violent spectacle that few had dared to watch closely. They only knew that Jax had been taken away by Lilith Astor. Whether he was alive or dead was anyone's guess. Inside the extended-length Rolls-Royce, Lily sat beside Jax, gently dabbing at a scrape on his palm with a silk handkerchief. He'd gotten it when he'd lunged at Mr. Hughes. It was a small wound, but it was bleeding. This was the first time Jax had ever physically harmed another person. In his past life, he would never have done something so brutal. This wasn't the Jax she knew. Lily had always been aware of the changes in him, but she had told herself that as long as he was willing to pretend, every moment they grew closer was a gift. But now, this felt real. The realization made her heart pound, pushing all thoughts of the exhilarating, manic high of dealing with Mr. Hughes from her mind. The atmosphere in the car was tense, strangely discordant. Nathan broke the silence. Miss Astor, the invitation from the old master has been confirmed. He requests your presence, along with the young master, at the old estate for his birthday. In 2 days, he said he wants you to bring the young master home for him to have a look. The old master, Cornelius Astor, was the only family member who still held any sway over Lily. When she was 13, about to be sent to the organization like her sister, he had been the only one to object. He had stood in front of her, his back bent with age, a frail but protective barrier. Even though he had ultimately failed to save her, Lily remembered that kindness. When she returned and purged the family, she had spared him, providing for his comfortable retirement. Her respect for him was seen by outsiders as a sign that she was still under his control. When he had ordered her to marry a man to ward off ill fortune, a man who was actually a spy meant to control her, she had complied. She knew everything, but she had borne it all, perhaps just to keep one so-called elder alive in her family. Cornelius Astor had arranged for 7 men to marry Lily. 7 men had died, but this 8th man, this one who was still alive and well by her cold-hearted granddaughter's side, was not his choice. The old man, a control freak to his core, was naturally curious to see who Lily had given her weakness to. "We're not going," Lily said, her voice flat. "His birthday is less important than my sister's death anniversary. Give the order, decorate the entire old estate in white." For 7 days of mourning. She knew what the old man was thinking. He wanted to see Jax, to put him in danger. If that was his intention, then she would show him no mercy. She spoke with chilling indifference as she draped a warm cashmere blanket over Jax. "Jax, it's cold in the car." Lily looked up, her eyes tinged with red. Jax could sense the instability roiling beneath her calm exterior. He took her cue, pulling her into his arms and wrapping the soft blanket around both of them, pressing his body and his warmth against hers. If it's cold, then holding you will make me warm," he murmured. "It's okay. I don't care about what happened with Hughes. My Lily is not a monster. She's the woman I cherish and adore." He tightened his arms, trying to convey the depth of his sincerity. The moment Lily's body touched his, she lost all control, wrapping her legs around his waist, her grip tight and possessive. Her wine-red hair swirled around them, strands brushing against his cheek, making his skin tingle. Lily pressed her lips to his ear, nibbling on his earlobe, her eyes dark and intense. "Jax, is this real?" she whispered. "I feel like you're falling in love with me, but a monster like her, whom Jax had always avoided like the plague. How could he love her? And yet, the care, the respect, the genuine pain he felt for her. That wasn't something a man who hated her would show. Lily was lost. She was ruthless in the business world, but when it came to love, she was as innocent as a child. But there was an advantage to that pure emotion. Her passion was raw and unfiltered. Her devotion was absolute. She didn't hide, she didn't run. She only knew how to possess. "You silly girl, it's not like," Jax whispered back, his hand wrapping around her slender waist under the blanket. He nuzzled her neck, placing a soft, lingering kiss there. It was an intimate, heart-stopping gesture. "Lily, it's not your imagination. I really do love you. What do I have to do to make you believe me?" His eyes were full of tenderness. He could feel her body trembling against his. A damp spot on his shoulder made his heart ache. Lily was crying. Outsiders had never seen her cry, but Jax had, several times. He had always scoffed at it, thinking she was just mimicking Chloe's crocodile tears to manipulate him. But now, it threw him into a panic. "Baby, why? Why are you crying?" After a long moment, Lily finally spoke, her voice hoarse. "Do I deserve it?" The world had told her that the Astor monster didn't deserve to be loved. But now, Jax was saying he loved her. Yes, Miss Astor deserves to be loved. She deserves the best of everything in the world. Lily looked up at him in disbelief. The next moment, he was holding her face in his hands, kissing her. It was a slow, searching kiss, like the first drops of rain on a parched desert. "Jax, my personality? It's not whole, and my body isn't healthy. I might not live past 25. She stopped, unable to say the words. "But I'm also cruel enough, selfish enough, to want to possess you, young and healthy as you are, even knowing I don't have long." Her eyes were filled with an anxious light. She accepted his gentle, comforting kiss for only a moment before it wasn't enough. She quickly took control, pushing him back against the seat, her slender fingers tangling in his short hair as she deepened the kiss. She was like a leech, desperately drinking him in. She was never one to restrain herself, and she had often indulged in doing whatever she wanted to Jax, which was why he had been so afraid of her. Now, as she kissed him with wild abandon, she couldn't resist letting her hand creep up to his neck. If only she had the collar she commissioned. It would look so beautiful on him. Jax let her have her way, his own hands gripping her waist. Then, taking her by surprise, he flipped her back into his lap. He gently flicked her forehead, his tone that of a man lovingly scolding his girlfriend. "No matter what secrets my Lily has, we'll face them together. We're husband and wife. I have a duty to take care of you and protect you. Whatever flaws you think you have, you weren't born with them. The world owes you a debt of warmth, and from now on, I'll be the one to pay it back." "Okay." He took her hand, rubbing her cold fingers between his own, warming them. In their embrace, it felt like two broken souls had finally found a safe harbor in each other. Lily stared at him, her breathing growing hot and unsteady. "Oh, how can Jax be so good? And this sweet, gentle boy, he belongs to me. I love him so, so much. He even said we're husband and wife." Her frozen heart, locked away for so long, began to melt in his hands. But the original her, she was so ugly, stained with blood, violence, and madness. Could she ever be fixed? She knew she was different from normal people. Her madness would hurt him. She would be tempted to drag him down into hell with her. She was so bad, and he was so good. A wave of shame washed over her, but her greed was stronger. She nodded. Okay, she whispered. Jax, I love you so much. What do I do? I need all your gentleness, all your goodness to belong only to me. I can't stand the thought of you being like this with any other woman. I'll go crazy. She bit his neck, branding him with her mark. She loved to mark him. It was the only way to prove he was completely hers. In the driver's seat, Nathan stared straight ahead, a wall of privacy glass now separating them. He could almost feel the intensity of their embrace. Well, he thought, it's better that Jax can keep her in check for now. Better than her randomly having a psychotic break. He looked stoic, but deep down, he felt a profound pity for Lily. She was only 20 years old, an age when others were living carefree lives at university. And she was already like a withered tree, silently counting down the days to her own death. How did our competitor get their hands on the encrypted bidding files for the Kensington project? This was our biggest deal of the year. We were relying on that precise bid to maximize our profit. How could it have been leaked? Morgan Pierce paced her office, frantic. After Caleb was admitted to the hospital, she had planned to stay outside the emergency room, fulfilling her duty as the responsible older sister. But then the call came. Pierce Financial was in crisis. A rival company had suddenly snatched the Kensington deal, a deal they had been negotiating for 3 months. And their bid was only 0.1% higher than Pierce Financial's. It was a targeted strike clearly aimed at them. Combined with the recent theft and deletion of their encrypted files, Morgan immediately knew who was responsible. It had to be Jax. He was her brother. Was he really going to push her to the brink of ruin? What did he want? She tried calling him, using nearly 20 different burner phones. After being blocked more than 20 times, Jax finally, grudgingly, picked up. His voice was like a king granting an audience to a peasant. Ms. Pierce, have you prepared your pole dance yet? Morgan, Jax is trying to kill me. Jax, you hacked Pierce Financial, didn't you? You sold our intel to Apex Consolidated and sabotaged the deal I've been working on for 3 months, Morgan Pierce accused, her voice cutting through the line. She instinctively ignored the cold, grating mockery in his tone. That's a bold accusation, Ms. Pierce. Sound a lot like slander to me. Jax's voice was casual, but the threat was clear. Morgan, I'm giving you some friendly advice. If that video isn't on your public social media accounts in 3 hours, well, Pierce Financial, I wouldn't mind letting my wife personally dismantle it. He let out a lazy chuckle, but his eyes held a chilling, predatory glint. The cold, emotionless words sent a shiver down Morgan's spine, her heart sinking with each syllable. It wasn't long ago that Jax would have been falling over himself to please her, respectfully, almost reverently. Now, he showed none of the respect a younger brother owed his older sister. She could understand his anger. She knew he saw her doting on the sickly Caleb as favoritism, a deep betrayal. But family fights were supposed to happen behind closed doors. Forcing her to pole dance on a public platform, that wasn't just a fight. It was a profound humiliation, a violation of her status as the eldest. Does he even realize the sacrifice he's asking for? She thought desperately. Isn't he afraid of becoming a pariah in his own family? Jax, are you threatening me with the Astor dynasty? Morgan finally snapped. That monstrous heiress was on her deathbed. Was he really pinning all his hopes on her? And yet, even though everyone knew Lilith Astor didn't have long as she was breathing, no one dared to challenge the power of the Astor name. Morgan, drop the commanding tone. Get off your high horse. You're not queen of the world, Jax sneered. And check your logic. Your head is so far up your own as you can't see straight. You could get hit by a bus, choke on a glass of water, or trip and break your neck on the way out the door. But you'd better post that video before you die. Otherwise, Pierce Financial is going to go bankrupt. The threats tumbled out of him effortlessly. On his own, he was nothing compared to Morgan, a titan of the financial world. But he wasn't on his own. He had a wife from a top-tier global dynasty. With a powerful heiress backing him, his spine felt like steel. His tone was unyielding, backing Morgan into a corner. Her face went pale, a familiar tension tightening around her skull like a vice. She subconsciously searched for the scent that always soothed her, the one that eased the pain, but it was gone, ripped from her life completely. In that moment, Morgan felt as if she had been plunged into an icy abyss. Jax, do we really have to be enemies? Her voice was softened now, pleading. As your big sister, I'm begging you. Leave me with this last shred of dignity. You know Pierce Financial is my life's work. 10 years of blood, sweat, and tears. How can you be so cruel? The commanding tone was gone, replaced by the same gentle, coaxing voice she used on Caleb. But the Jax on the other end of the line had no need for such hollow sentiment. Oh, I can be very cruel, he said. You have 3 hours. Either your reputation is destroyed, or the company you spent a decade building is destroyed. Pick one. It's a fun little game, don't you think? He laughed, a cold, contemptuous sound. It was the same game, he thought, from that so-called disappearance when he was a child. The kidnapping. A choice. One or the other. He'd only been 4 years old. He had memories of his family, faint but there, before the years of wandering the streets, of eating garbage when the hunger became unbearable, of a fever that hit 106 degrees and almost fried his brain, wiping away everything that came before. It was only after returning to the Pierce family, after being used as a guinea pig to test medicines for his sister Madison, that the memories began to return, a cruel side effect of the experimental drugs. He remembered the truth of his disappearance. The Pierce family had been rising too fast, attracting the envy of their rivals. A hit was ordered. Both he and Caleb were taken. The kidnappers, it seemed, enjoyed watching humanity crumble. They took 2 4-year-old boys to a seaside cliff. He remembered the wind, how it stung his skin. He could see Caleb's face, flushed and red. Caleb had always been weaker than him, and the biting wind made him look like he would pass out at any second. The vicious kidnappers tied them both to the branches of a rickety tree overhanging the cliff's edge. Mr. and Mrs. Pierce and all 5 of your lovely daughters. The kidnapper's voice had crackled over a phone. Today, I'm giving you the chance to take one child back. Pick one. Pick one. What a cruel choice. His father and his mother, Eleanor, their faces were pale, paralyzed with indecision. His father looked directly into his eyes. Jax, you're the older brother. You have to be stronger than Caleb. Give his chance to your little brother, okay? Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. Jax, Caleb is so fragile. He needs his mommy. Let him live. I'm begging you. Please forgive me for being selfish. Morgan, the eldest, was still a teenager herself. She had cried his name. Jax, please, let Caleb have his chance. He deserves to see more of the world. If you survive the fall, I swear I'll never stop looking for you. Jax's small body went rigid. He was only 4, but it felt like the blood had frozen in his veins. He saw his grandmother rush forward, leaning heavily on her cane, held back by his parents. My precious Caleb can't be hurt, she had shrieked. Get my Caleb back right now. He's our family's golden child. Without him, we'll never make it into New York's high society. That Jax, he's a curse. Was it you? Did you jinx your brother? Drag him into this mess? You deserve to die. Jump into the sea right now and trade yourself for your brother, or I swear I'll skin you alive myself. The family's choice was unanimous. In the end, he was tossed into the freezing, merciless ocean like a broken doll. As he fell, he kept his eyes wide open, staring desperately up at the cliff. No one looked over the edge. They were all crowded around the newly rescued Caleb, fussing over him. When Jax eventually returned to the family, they were wary of him at first. But he tried so hard, so desperately, to be good to them, to please them, that they slowly let their guard down. But as his memories returned, he couldn't stop asking himself one question. Am I really their child? A child starved of affection is always more sensitive, more fragile. When Eleanor developed a rash and calmly asked him for a skin cream, he'd ventured deep into the mountains, risking danger to find the rare ingredients, painstakingly recreating a formula from an ancient text. All he had ever wanted from them was an ounce of the love they showered on Caleb, just to be treated like family. Now, he felt nothing for them but a void, so he would burn it all to the ground. Hearing Jax repeat that phrase, pick one, was like a switch flipping in Morgan's mind. The fragile nerves in her head stretched to their breaking point, and then, with a deafening roar, they snapped. She was horrified, wanting to explain, to argue, but when she opened her mouth, no sound came out. The dial tone buzzed in her ear, a stark reminder that Jax had hung up, a reminder that she had only 3 hours to choose. Morgan felt her world collapse. Jax, I'm sorry. Big sister was wrong. I was so wrong to you. I was so biased, and I let you suffer so much. But she knew, with chilling certainty, that Jax would never give her a chance to atone. She sat in her office, hollowed out, for a long, long time, the minutes and hours slipping through her fingers like sand. Finally, like a puppet whose strings had been cut, she stood up. She began to unbutton her suit jacket. The formal professional attire was shed, tossed onto the floor. The buttons of her silk blouse followed, one by one. Along with them went her pride, her reputation, her dignity, everything she had built, everything she was, all thrown into the mud, trampled by her own hand. But she had forgotten. Jax's dignity, his personhood, his very life. She had once trampled those herself. The gears of revenge had only just begun to turn. Jax hung up, his expression cold. He stood before the floor-to-ceiling window of the master bedroom, the storm of emotions in his eyes taking a long time to settle. It wasn't that he felt any lingering affection for the Pierce family. It was that in this moment, he wished with all his heart that he shared no blood with them. He would have been happier if his family had been a poor couple from the mountains, farmers who would have at least loved him as their own son, who would have given him the affection he'd spent a lifetime craving. He felt a profound regret. All those years, he'd been a beggar in the Pierce household, kneeling and pleading for scraps of love, only to receive a body full of insults and scars. It wasn't worth it. Of course, that same worthlessness was now the fuel driving him to push the entire Pierce family into the abyss. Some people are born human, but are unworthy of being parents. Shaking himself from his thoughts, Jax went to the study, compiled his design proposals into a single file, and sent it directly to Lilith, who was in the middle of work. Lilith had personally decreed that Jax had free access to any part of Moonshadow Estate. Hearing the door open, she looked up, her half-lidded eyes instantly softening with a warm glow. On the other side of the video conference, the executives on screen collectively held their breath. Wait a minute. Is it the smell of a year-end bonus increase in the air? Lily, are you tired? Jax asked, walking in. I had the kitchen prepare a medicinal broth for you. It's my own recipe. It's good for your skin, balances your system. It'll do you a lot of good. It might be a little bitter, so I brought you some candied fruit. Ever since he'd confessed his feelings to her, he felt like the way she looked at him had changed. It was like she was staring at a prime cut of steak, every glance screaming that she wanted to devour him whole. He'd quickly used work as an excuse to usher her into the study. The two of them, working quietly in a space where they could see each other, was a harmonious piece that Jax found himself enjoying. But her health was a constant worry. He was afraid she'd refuse to drink a purely medicinal tonic because of the bitterness, so he'd opted for a more palatable broth. Lilith saw it all. In truth, she could handle any bitterness. The hardships she had endured were far more torturous than anything her taste buds could register. But watching Jax fuss over her, seeing how carefully he'd selected the ingredients, she suddenly had the feeling that he was trying to raise her all over again, from scratch. Only little girls were afraid of bitterness. Was Jax spoiling her like a little girl? The feeling, she decided, was sweet. She reveled in it. You have to feed me. Lilith reached out, swiveling her webcam away with a flick of her wrist. She propped her chin on one hand, her exquisite, pale face tilting up to meet his gaze, her eyes hot and direct. She was absolutely crazy about him. The bowl in Jax's hand froze for a second. His gaze fell on her laptop screen, which was still live. On it, the entire board of executives sat ramrod straight, like a collection of statues. Not a single one moved. The video feed must have frozen. The senior management of the Astor International Group. Wait, what did we just hear? Our boss, the woman who terrorizes heaven, earth, and her subordinates with the ruthless efficiency of a butcher, cooing at her husband with a soft, gentle voice. And judging by the consort's attitude, his status in this household seems quite high. The sky is falling. Ms. Astor is actually listening to a man? No, impossible. We must be hallucinating from the insane workload she puts us through. The next moment, however, Jax had taken a seat in the leather chair that was always waiting for him next to her. He carefully blew on a spoonful of the broth, then tasted it himself to test the temperature. Oof, it is a little bitter, he admitted. Lily, maybe you should have a piece of candied fruit. Before he could finish the word, Lilith had thrown her arms around his neck, pressing her soft lips to his. Smack! She kissed him right on the mouth, where a trace of the broth still lingered. Not bitter at all, she purred, her profile breathtakingly beautiful. The broth my Jax makes is perfectly sweet. I want to drink it all up. Her motion was gentle, but held an undeniable strength. On the road to seducing Jax, she had always expertly held the upper hand. But this time, there was a tenderness to it that made his heart flutter. He felt like his soul was about to be stolen away. He tried to hide his loss of control, but the crimson tips of his ears betrayed the boyish heart that pounded only for her. After the kiss, Lilith took the bowl and obediently drank every last drop of the broth. Then she licked her lips, as if savoring the aftertaste. Husband, was that enough? She asked, her voice a low murmur. Should we go for another round? I can drink a lot more. As she spoke, her fingertips traced a path behind him, poking him gently in the waist. Her eyes, clear and bewitching, were locked on his lips, as if ready to pounce for another fierce kiss at any moment. This was getting a little too intense for a serious business meeting. Jax felt his toes curl inside his shoes. He quickly reached up and stroked her hair, his touch gentle and placating. All right now, too much of this broth isn't good for you either. We have to nourish you gradually. Getting your health back isn't something that can be rushed. He spoke with such seriousness that for a moment, it seemed like he was the master of Moonshadow Estate, the one in control of their relationship. After all, when his volatile wife was this obedient, she was intoxicatingly sweet. Jax is so good to me, she murmured. You deserve a reward. Come here, kiss me. Lilith made no effort to hide it. She wasn't normally one to share these intimate moments. She was intensely private, possessive. She wanted every reaction from Jax, every kiss, every loving pat on the head, every time he let her devour him, to be for her eyes only. But she had just noticed that with the video conference still on, Jax was so reserved, so endearingly shy, and it ignited her desire to break him. I think I've discovered something wonderful. The executives? We are just soulless corporate drones. But, Ms. Aster, we never knew you were so daring in private. After all, their 20-year-old heiress and CEO was famously frigid. In the business world, men who coveted her beauty had certainly tried their luck at first, but they all ended up dead, insane, or missing. Eventually, no one dared to try again. They all said she was as beautiful as she was deadly, a man-eating flower. But this new consort, he was clearly different. Just for having the guts to serve Ms. Aster, they bowed to him in utter admiration. Smack Lilith's reward came fast and hard. She kissed him again, and this time, Jax found himself pushed down onto the leather sofa. Jax, call me. Click. The video conference disconnected. The executives. And % times #pound greater than or equal to. The cursing was impressively foul. Call her what? Call her what? Damn it. They were going to have to invest in a new webcam system, one that the boss couldn't just shut off at the most critical moment. In the study, Jax's hands were pinned by Lilith's, their fingers intertwined, the contact hot and fierce, mixing with the frantic beat of his heart. For a moment, Jax felt like he was about to become a plaything in the palm of her hand. The familiar, beautiful scent of her perfume swirled around him, and in the next second, she whispered a thrillingly taboo name in his ear. Jax, this. Wait, could he really call her that? It was beyond mortifying, but he didn't dare defy a command from Lilith Aster. He obediently wrapped his arms around her waist, letting her settle onto his lap. Auntie, he managed, his throat tight, his gaze darkening. If someone finds out, this isn't good, Ms. Aster, you were playing with fire, then it hit him. Putting aside the fact that he'd just obediently called her, that while pretending to object, was she really blameless in this? What was she so excited about? Where was the insane rage she used to fly into whenever he'd called her that before? She still seemed just as crazy, but the flavor had completely changed. Oh, not good if we're found out, she purred, her arms wrapping stubbornly around his neck. Oh, my darling, would it not be good to find us? A sense of blissful contentment filled her chest, but underneath it, she couldn't help but feel a flicker of fear. The perpetually proud and arrogant Lilith Aster never felt completely secure in Jax's affection. She felt the urge to bite the crook of his neck, as if only by leaving her mark, by tasting him, could she quell the anxiety of a love she might not truly possess. A child starved of love spends their entire life healing their childhood. They spend their entire life searching for a love that can finally bring them peace. Jax keenly sensed Lilith's unease. This time, he simply pressed his forehead gently against hers. Lily, are you done testing me yet? He looked deeply into her eyes, a brilliant, knowing smile lighting them up. There was no trace of shame after being so thoroughly ravaged by her. Instead, his eyes sparkled as he asked the question. It was as if he would always be her son. As long as she needed him, he would be there. It felt unreal, but Lilith desperately, urgently needed this kind of blatant, unwavering love. If you're always going to feel insecure, that's okay, he said, his voice a low, sincere, and sweet whisper. Then every morning when I wake up, I'll tell you the real reason I want to stay at Moonshadow Estate is. He took a breath. Lily, I'm falling for you. As the last word left his lips, he took the initiative, reversing their roles. In that instant, the power dynamic between Jax and Lilith flipped. He reached over and slammed her laptop shut, cutting off all video and audio, leaving the study silent except for the sound of their breathing. Lilith felt her heart plummet into a vat of honey. You and your sweet lies, she protested weakly, though her heart was already a swirling ocean of pink. I don't. MMPH. The next moment, Her pupils constricted as Jax surged forward, capturing her lips. His clean, crisp scent enveloped her. Thump! Lilith could almost hear the sound of her own heart falling for him. Falling until there was no return. "Do you believe me now?" Jax asked, pulling back just enough to mimic her earlier kiss, a deliberate, audible smack that echoed in the quiet study, intoxicatingly intimate. A blush crept up the tips of Lilith's ears. "And no," she managed. Another possessive kiss landed, Jax now actively hooking his arm around her neck, pressing her head forward as his lips claimed hers. His mission was clear: punish her with affection. Smack another kiss. Jax watched her expression, a playful smile on his lips. "Still don't believe me? My little." "I don't," she said stubbornly, but only she knew how much she was enjoying it. Outside the study door, Nathan and Mr. Sterling stood, their faces outwardly stoic, but their minds had been numb for a while. What had they done to deserve this? They were just working the night shift. In the kitchen, after ensuring Lilith had finished her broth, Jax departed with the air of a man who had accomplished a great deed and sought no credit. Lilith was still basking in the sweetness of the moment and didn't notice Nathan and Mr. Sterling standing meekly before her. When she finally looked up and saw their two deadpan faces, her mood soured instantly. The temperature in the study dropped 10 degrees. "What is it?" Lilith asked, annoyed. Seeing their serious expressions, she knew that old man at the family estate was up to something again. "Ms. Asked her Mr. Cornelius is ill," Nathan said, his face a cold mask, though internally he was cursing a blue streak. "You may have to go to the estate tomorrow. Julian returned tonight. He personally went to the psychiatric hospital and brought your mother home. He's also planning an early birthday celebration for your grandfather. On the same day, you plan to hold a memorial for Luna. The family elders have also been summoned. According to our sources," Nathan continued, choosing his words carefully, "that old geezer is planning to use the new consort's inability to provide an heir as a reason to select a new husband for you." Having been with Lilith for years, Nathan knew better than anyone how disgusting the internal politics of the Astor dynasty were. Cannibalism was just another word for family. It made him feel for the isolated Lilith. God only knew how much she had suffered, how many tears she had swallowed alone, to finally find someone she liked, someone who could offer her companionship and ease her pain. As long as Jax didn't cause trouble, both he and Mr. Sterling were happy to have him around. They genuinely cared for her. What kind of parents would name their daughter Lilith, a name so often associated with demons and the night? Perhaps it was because she was destined from birth to be stripped of emotion, to be cold and loveless. He's certainly ill," Lilith said, her voice flat. Sick with a death wish. The good mood Jax had carefully cultivated now plummeted. But this time, her emotions were noticeably more stable. There was no madness, not even a change in expression. "Tomorrow, I'll take Jax to the estate." Before, Lilith had never wanted to expose Jax to that dangerous place, wanting to protect him. But now, she had a sudden impulse. She wanted Jax to see her world. Even if it was desolate and broken, it was her past. She was willing to rip open her most rotten parts for him to see. If it scared him away, that was fine. She could always just catch him and lock him up again. Downstairs, Jax was on the phone with Sam Cole, having him handle the incorporation of his first art auction venture, Phoenix Area Auctions. All artwork submitted for auction would be authenticated by professional appraisers a week prior. "Bro, are you sure these paintings will make money?" Sam's uncertain voice came through the phone. "When I went to register the business, I saw the neighborhood. It's all high-end galleries with antiques and famous works. Your paintings, they're unique, I'll give you that, but they're by some unknown artist." Jax brushed off his concern. "Sam, you just need to trust me. When this is done, I'll give you a 30% cut." Jax was always generous with his friends, especially Sam, who was like a brother to him. As he climbed, he intended to bring Sam up with him to make him his right-hand man and get him rich in the process. "By the way," Jax asked, a vague sense of unease creeping up on him, "have you been in touch with Kira lately? Does she know you've moved into a mansion and are driving a luxury car?" The sudden question clearly startled Sam. "Jax, you know me and Kira have been together forever. We're high school sweethearts. How could I hide something like that from her?" "Sam, you're digging your own grave," Jax said, his voice tight with frustration. Sam laughed. All right. I'm just messing with you. Kira has no idea I'm rich. But she did say a family member was sick the other day and asked to borrow $5,000. She knows how much I have saved up over the years. $5,000 is pretty much all of it. But if she needs it, she gets it. Don't worry, bro. I only gave her the 5,000 I had before all this. I didn't say anything else. Jax's tension eased slightly. In his past life, Kira had been dumped by a rich kid and had come crawling back to Sam, faking a suicide attempt to manipulate him. Sam, hopelessly in love, had become a pawn in her games. This time, Jax had Mako keeping an eye on her. The rich kid, Wyatt, had been into her for a while. During that time, while Sam was with Jax, Kira had been telling Sam she was busy studying for grad school exams, but was actually running around with Wyatt. Recently, Wyatt had grown tired of her. He'd stopped showering her with designer bags, watches, and expensive clothes. But Kira had developed a taste for luxury that she couldn't satisfy. Her desires had grown insatiable. So now, she was lying to Sam, trying to squeeze his life savings out of him just to buy a new designer bag to feed her vanity. The situation reminded Jax of Chloe Vance. He, too, had once emptied his pockets to buy her the designer thing she wanted. A simp to the end, he'd lost everything, including his life. It was so stupid. He wouldn't make the same mistake this time, and he wouldn't let Sam make it either. Sam, your entire budget for a year of frugal living is maybe $4,000. She asked for 5,000, your entire savings. Do you think she gave a single thought to you? Which family member is sick? What's the illness? You didn't even ask? Jax fired off the questions one by one. Sam frowned. He hadn't cared about those details. He and Kira had been together for years. She was proud, cool-headed, rational, beautiful. She would never lose herself. She must have been desperate to ask him for money. And as her boyfriend, he was supposed to take care of her, to be her rock without reservation. So no, he hadn't felt the need to ask any of those questions. If Kira wanted to tell him, she would. His simple, trusting love for his high school sweetheart wasn't wrong. Jax knew that. The problem was, Kira had changed, and Sam was still giving her his blind trust. Jax, I trust her, Sam insisted. Everyone has secrets. I'm even hiding things from her, pretending I'm still broke. I feel guilty about it. Now that things are good, I should be sharing it with her. Moving her in, Sam sensed the low pressure on the other end of the line and didn't dare argue further. Even if he didn't understand what Jax was doing, he trusted him unconditionally, just like he trusted Kira. Fine. Fine, Jax sighed. You're one of those guys who has to hit the wall before you see it. Tomorrow, go to the cafe across from the Chanel store at the Crystal Spire Mall. Wait there. You'll get a surprise. Jax had already discovered that Kira had pre-ordered a new bag from Chanel, one with a $12,000 price tag. Wyatt used to buy her bags without blinking, and she'd gotten used to the lifestyle. To show off to her friends, she'd ordered the latest model. But Wyatt had cut her off. She'd sold a few of her less valuable bags, but couldn't bear to part with the rest. After scraping together what she could, she was still short. So she turned to her poor, pathetic boyfriend. His entire savings from part-time jobs since starting college was just about what she needed, wasn't it? And just as she'd expected, Sam was easy. All she had to do was ask, and he handed over everything he had, without even asking where the money was going. Jax, do you know something? Sam wasn't an idiot. He had a pretty good idea what Jax was implying, but he didn't want to believe it. He and Kira were in love. They were the top students from their small town, a perfect match in brains and looks. They had come together so naturally, walking side by side into one of the country's top universities. They were a match made in heaven. Kira would never betray him. Sam's emotions began to spiral, but Jax gave him no chance to vent. He left him with one final sentence and hung up. Go and see for yourself. After the call, Jax went back upstairs. As he approached the study, he could feel the oppressive atmosphere. And why were Nathan and Mr. Sterling standing there in the middle of the night? Like they were being punished? Lily, what's wrong? Jax asked, walking straight to the leather chair and wrapping his arms around the woman sitting there. He ignored her mood and planted a kiss right on her lips. Instantly, Lilith's grim expression melted away, replaced by a radiant glow. Nathan and Mr. Sterling. Kissing can trigger a face-swapping skill? Jax, Lilith murmured. Hold me. Lilith raised her arms, taking advantage of Jax's posture as he leaned over her, and wrapped them forcefully around his waist. Her petite frame wriggled into his embrace, her face nuzzling against his chest like a calico cat begging for affection. The soft touch, the sweetness of having his wife in his arms. It was almost enough to shatter the iron will of a man like Jax. Ahem. I'm holding, he said, his voice a little shaky. What's wrong with my Lily? Can you tell your husband now? Did these two old-timers make you angry? I'll teach them a lesson right now. Jax was discovering that his skill at placating his volatile wife had reached a master level. As a bonus, he could assert some authority in front of Nathan and Mr. Sterling. The feeling was intoxicatingly satisfying. Nathan and Mr. Sterling. Consort, You can eat whatever you want, but you can't just say whatever you want. Do we look like we have a nerve? Lilith glanced languidly at the two men standing at attention in the study and, to their shock, nodded in perfect cooperation. She said, her voice laced with a newfound vulnerability. They were ugly to look at. She just made up an excuse, anything to stay nestled in Jax's arms. Crash, Nathan and Mr. Sterling felt their world crumble. But to be the object of the young Mrs. Teasing was an honor. They could only manage smiles that looked more pained than a grimace. Our apologies, young miss. We will leave at once, so as not to pollute your eyes. Lilith had never engaged in such childish games before. But no matter what she did, the way Nathan and Mr. Sterling played along sent a faint warmth through her heart. It seemed that only after Jax had accepted her love did the clouds part from her eyes, allowing her to see that there were others in her life who had been spoiling her like a little girl all along. Lilith waved a hand, dismissing them. Then she raised her still healing right hand and held it up to Jax's face, her eyes wide and pleading. Jax, my hand. It hurts. She was mimicking the melodramatic heroines from the soap operas she'd been binge-watching lately. Her movements were stiff, her tone wooden. She had never been coquettish with a man before. Jax was the first, and most of the time, she could only keep him with force. Thus, the great heiress's attempt at being cute was awkward, to say the least. Her technique was about 100,000 miles behind her skills in the bedroom. Jax looked at the arrogant, volatile woman in his arms, pretending to be weak. It was so transparently fake. Yet in that moment, he found her unbelievably cute. It was true what they said. When you love someone, everything they do is adorable. Jax sat down, his tall frame easily accommodating her as he pulled her onto his lap. Seeing that Nathan and Mr. Sterling hadn't retreated yet, he shot them a look, gesturing for the first aid kit. For the past while, Jax had been the one to personally treat and bandage her hand every night. In the past, Lilith would have just let a wound like this scab over on its own. Now, she had learned to pout. Jax, it hurts, she'd say, then watch as he willingly bustled around, caring for her. TSK, this is what you get for not behaving, for hurting yourself, Jax said, his tone a light mockery, feigning sternness. But Lilith somehow heard the undertones of heartache. She obediently held out her hand, letting him expertly change the dressing. However, when the old gauze came off, Nathan and Mr. Sterling stared. Holy, the scab on that wound is practically falling off on its own. And for this, she was complaining about pain? This was the woman who once wielded a scythe, covered in blood, without making a sound. Jax, you have to rub it, Lilith said, realizing that crying pain over this wound was a bit much. Her eyes darted around, and as Jax was putting away the medical supplies, she shot a cold glare at Nathan and Mr. Sterling. The two old-timers immediately and obediently turned their backs. The silent screams of the working class. Oh, sweet heaven. The money is hard to earn, the crap is hard to swallow, and the public displays of affection from the billionaire boss are the hardest to stomach of all. Jax looked down, seeing through Lilith's little ploy. The hand that had been about to massage hers suddenly changed course, moving up to cup her smooth, pale cheek, giving it a firm squeeze. A punishment for not listening, he said, his voice a serious reprimand. Are you going to do it again? His grip wasn't exactly light, and the feel of her collagen-rich cheek was fantastic. How dare he discipline the volatile heiress, and get away with it, even making her willingly submit. That's a new level of skill. Nathan and Mr. Sterling. Damn, Jax, you've really mastered the art of turning the tables. Lilith tilted her head, her expression one of pure innocence. Her unadorned, exquisite face had a natural purity that made it easy to forget her formidable capacity for violence. Jax, you're finished, she declared. As punishment, you have to sleep naked tonight, while I hold you. Lilith's counterattack was fatal. The newfound confidence Jax had been building in managing his volatile wife shattered into a million pieces. His heart hammered in his chest. Holy, that's a punishment. I like it. Nathan and Mr. Sterling. Is this something our pay grade is clear to hear? In the end, the two workers were unceremoniously kicked out. Lilith pulled Jax over to the desk, her slender legs rubbing against his trousers. The volatile CEO's voice was a low, gentle whisper in his ear, while her fingers were deftly captured by his, which began to gently massage them. Jax, tomorrow I'm taking you back to the Astor estate, she said. You only need to remember one thing. You are my husband. I am your greatest strength and your ultimate trump card. If anyone dares to give you trouble, you don't need to be polite. As she spoke, a wicked glint filled her eyes, practically overflowing. It wasn't the first time Jax had been to the estate with her. He had gone in his past life. He remembered that Cornelius Astor, Lilith's own grandfather, seemed to detest her and, by extension, saw him as a thorn in his side. Because of his rebirth, the timeline for visiting the estate had moved up, but he would never forget. The first time he entered the estate, Lilith had been called away by her older brother, Julian, on some pretext. Worried, she had left Nathan to watch over him. But at the time, Jax had loathed anyone associated with Lilith and had deliberately slipped away from Nathan's protection, only to fall into Cornelius's trap. He had been pushed into a freezing cold lake. The New York winter had come early that year. The lake at the estate was fed by snowmelt from the high mountain peaks behind it. Even before winter truly set in, the water was bone-chillingly cold. In his past life, he couldn't swim. He'd avoided swimming classes in college. He was terrified of the water. The deeper reason was the psychological trauma from being thrown into the sea as a child. He'd been afraid of water ever since. That day, after being pushed into the icy lake, he had struggled desperately, trying to climb out. But he saw Julian and Leo standing by the shore, watching him coldly. Leo had even jumped up and down, taunting him. "This piece of trash, Jax, is he worthy of my sister's favor? Let him drown. Then Lily can find a new man to keep her company. Jax, do you really think my sister likes you? She's just lonely and needs a toy to play with. You're that toy. My sister is sentimental. She'll only get a new toy when the old one is broken." Leo's words had made Jax's vision go red. He never wanted to be Lilith's toy. He had been forced to stay by her side, and now he had to suffer this humiliation, this pain, because of her. He was about to lose his life. In that moment, Jax's hatred for Lilith reached its peak again. Julian sat in his wheelchair, his gaze falling dispassionately on Jax's struggling form. "Lily's taste is really getting worse," he'd said, his voice thin and cool. "Looking closely, this man does bear a striking resemblance to the one she used to worship." Julian had paused, as if realizing he'd said too much. He looked at Jax with a mixture of pity and contempt. But his meaning was clear. The reason he, Jax, had been chosen by the great Heiress, the reason she held on to him so tightly, was because he looked like someone else she once loved. Jax felt a surge of bitter irony. He refused to be a substitute for anyone. With that thought, his strength suddenly gave out. He felt the heat leaving his body, the icy water seeping into his organs. His body sank, along with his already dead heart, down, down, down. "So, Lilith, how will you ever repay me for this?" Consumed by the desire to die, Jax hadn't noticed the woman in blood-red high heels rushing toward them. With a vicious crack of a barbed whip, she had sent both Julian and Leo sprawling. Then, that fierce, domineering figure had plunged into the cold lake. Young Mr. Sterling, who had followed her, screamed, tears streaming down his face. "Young miss, you can't jump in. The doctor said your body is already severely weakened. You can't go into cold water again. It would only shorten her lifespan." But Lilith hadn't listened. All she knew was that she couldn't let Jax die. She loved him. Even if it meant dying together, she couldn't bear the pain of him leaving her first. No one noticed the triumphant smile that flashed across Julian's face as he lay on the ground in the pavilion, watching Lilith dive in without hesitation. "TSK, Lilith, I've finally found your weakness." Jax had been unconscious for 7 days and 7 nights. Every night, he felt his body alternate between burning hot and freezing cold, as if enveloped by a ball of fire. Much later, he learned from Nathan that it had been Lilith, burning with a high fever, hovering on the brink of death herself, who had refused to let go of his hand. Even when she passed out, the doctors couldn't pry her fingers open. They could only treat them both together. But the first thing Jax did when he woke up was slap her across the face. "Slap! Why didn't you let me die?" he had screamed, his voice raw with hatred. "You monster, you disgusting freak. What will it take for you to finally let me go?" He hadn't noticed, in his rage, the single tear that had escaped and rolled down her cheek. But the great Heiress was too proud. She had quickly wiped it away with an upward motion, as if defying gravity itself. "Jax, I'm sorry," she had whispered, "but I will never let you go, even if we have to die together." Jax had despaired, and looking at him, Lilith's heart had fallen into its own endless despair. Lilith's words unexpectedly triggered the memories of his past life. But he had changed completely. He was no longer the same person. He now knew with absolute clarity the depth of Lilith's love for him. It was obvious that the words from Julian and Leo at the estate had been deliberately designed to provoke him. And they weren't even the real target. Julian's true goal had been Lilith all along. The poor Lilith of his past life had been attacked from all sides, with no one to love her, surrounded by family who wanted her dead. But this life would be different. He would not let her suffer the same fate. This time, he would protect her. He would grow stronger, faster, and never again allow himself to be a weakness anyone could use to trample her. Lilith sensed a shift in Jax's mood and nestled quietly in his arms. It was as if by holding each other close, they could truly enter each other's hearts, like an ordinary, intimate couple. After a while, something else occurred to Jax. He opened his laptop. "Lily, come and watch this show with me," he said, his voice dripping with self-preservation. 3 hours had passed. It was time for Morgan to make her choice. But a trashy video of a woman in a bikini pole dancing. He wouldn't dare watch that in front of his volatile wife. After all, he couldn't handle her methods of punishment. "Pull up Morgan Pierce's Twitter," he said. "Let's see if he's a good sport." Jax's words instantly jogged Lilith's memory. She had been there when the bet was made. She was secretly puzzled. In the past, Jax had been fiercely protective of the Pierces, even willing to sacrifice himself to her bed to prevent her from touching any of them. But now he was taking them down with his own hands. Lilith remained impassive, but deep down, she was immensely satisfied. Anyone who bullied her Jax deserved to die, of course, rather than killing them outright, making them suffer as they lost everything they cared about piece by piece. That cat-and-mouse game was far more interesting. Lilith's gaze on Jax gradually filled with admiration. As expected of the man I chose. His methods are just my style. She opened Twitter and went straight to the trending topics. Sure enough, the top headline had exploded. She clicked the video. The screen filled with a steamy scene. Morgan Pierce stood in what looked like her own office, dressed in her power suit. She stood before a steel pole, her head bowed in humiliation, her fingers trembling as she undid the buttons. The suit jacket was thrown to the floor. The buttons of her blouse were undone one by one, and the white shirt joined the jacket on the ground. Next came the skirt, the heels, the stockings. Then Morgan began to dance around the pole, her movements clumsy and stiff. But her figure was too good. Every motion seemed to draw the eye to shockingly intimate places. The video was less than a minute long, with only about 20 seconds of actual dancing, but it delivered on the terms of the bet. Morgan Pierce had made good on her promise, or rather, she had been forced to. The #1 trending topic was, without a doubt, the 6 words, Morgan Pierce stripper dance. The CEO of Pierce Financial, a woman who belonged on the business pages, had been rocketed to the top of the entertainment charts by a frenzy of clicks. The internet exploded. Morgan herself had gone into hiding. No one, not even her own family or subordinates, could find her. Damn, the CEO of Pierce Financial actually did it. You gotta respect that commitment. Save for scientific purposes. Pierce Financial is getting a lot of exposure from its CEO's pole dancing skills. If their profits go up, they'll have to thank that Kingston U genius, Jax Pierce, right? OMG, that body is wasted on a CEO. She should be doing porn. I heard this finance queen is known for her pride and elegance. Making her post a video like this must be worse than killing her. Whoever made that bet is a genius. That's a psychological kill shot. Jax peeked at the screen, a fleeting glimpse of the sultry image causing a dark glint to cross his eyes. TSK Morgan. This is just the beginning. The next second, a chill ran down his spine. Lilith glanced at him. "Jax, were you peeking?" "Cough. Ahem." Jax coughed, trying to cover his tracks, his eyes darting away as if he wanted to gouge them out. In the past, his eyeballs would have been plucked out, washed clean, and shoved back in their sockets for such an offense. Fortunately, the current Jax had become adept at managing his volatile heiress wife. "Sorry, Lily. My eyes were just bothering me. I glanced over by accident, didn't even see anything clearly," he lied smoothly. "Besides, I'm not interested in that kind of thing. More like, I don't dare to be interested." Lilith studied his expression. He didn't seem to be lying. More importantly, her trust in him had grown substantially. Besides, what was there to see in Morgan's figure? Jax had tasted far better. Naturally, he wouldn't be tempted by average fare. On this point, Lilith was quite confident. "It's not that you can't be interested," she purred, her beautiful eyes lifting lazily. As she spoke, her fingers, as if moved by the music in the video, drifted to the top button of her own blouse. She was also wearing professional attire, a white silk shirt, a black pencil skirt, and stockings that amplified her formidable aura. Jax's mind went blank. No, this is not happening. This is going to drain me completely. The laptop was snapped shut again. Lilith led him to the floor-to-ceiling window. He wrapped his arms around her slender waist, unable to resist leaning down to kiss the pale, smooth skin of her neck. "Lily, kiss me." A satisfied smile played on her lips. She hooked her arms around his neck, pressing him against the cold glass. Her fingertips traced idle circles on his abdomen, as if marking him with a symbol that belonged only to her. She had an intense, obsessive need to make him completely and utterly hers. Jax broke out in a sweat, his eyes widening in alarm as he saw the handcuffs she had suddenly produced. His expression froze. At the Pierce estate, Eleanor slammed her hand on the dining table, sweeping plates and dishes to the floor. Not satisfied, she overturned the entire table. Insolence. Utter insolence. Do we have any shame left? Morgan is my eldest daughter. She has always been my pride. She would never do something so vulgar and disgraceful on her own. It must have been that stray dog, Jax. He forced her. Why isn't that Jinx dead yet? Eleanor's shrieks echoed through the oppressive atmosphere of the house. Her insults for Jax had escalated from stray to stray dog, a measure of her fury. Everyone was upset about what their sister had done, but more than that, they were heartbroken for her. She was a woman, after all. Once a video like that was out, even if it was scrubbed from the internet, it would be saved forever. She would become the object of countless pathetic fantasies. For a woman at the top of her game, the whispers and contemptuous looks would become daggers. Jax's move had struck a fatal blow. Scarlett, the fourth sister, looked grim. She had witnessed almost the entire thing. This disaster, the lost bet, the humiliating video, it had all happened because Morgan had trusted Caleb too much. But what was Caleb's fault in all this? He had only acted out of insecurity after Jax came back. As his sister, she should be forgiving of his mistakes. But could Morgan forgive him? Besides, the one who had forced Morgan's hand with such cruel tactics was Jax. His methods were far more vicious. Mom, the priority right now is to save Morgan's reputation. The company's stock is already falling. We have to contain this, Scarlett said, offering a solution. I have some connections in the entertainment industry. I'll pay to have the story taken down. They were sisters. Their fates were tied together. She couldn't let her own reputation be tarnished by her sister's scandal. Even with her disfigured face, her status in the industry was unshakable. She was a titan in the world of film and television, a veteran director with several award-winning hit shows and critically acclaimed films to her name. The industry respectfully called her the country's most explosive art house female director. With her clout, getting a trending topic removed was just a phone call away. She immediately dialed the number of a senior executive at Twitter. Beep, beep, beep. Disconnected? How could? That's impossible. Scarlett frowned. The man who just 2 days ago was begging her for the rights to one of her films had blocked her. In disbelief, she tried several other numbers, well-known producers and media executives. The results were the same. Some had blocked her. One or two who answered were kind enough to offer a warning. Scarlett, you should really think about this. Who in New York City can afford to offend the Astor dynasty? Sorry, but we can't get involved with someone Ms. Astor is targeting. We'd be finished in this city. Director Pierce, let me give you a piece of advice. Whatever you did to piss off the Astors, you should go to Moonshadow Estate right now and beg for that she-devil's forgiveness. Otherwise, she'll torture you until you wish you were dead. Scarlett hung up, seething. Go to Moonshadow Estate and kneel. Kneeling would be an admission of guilt to that stray dog, that Jinx Jax. She would never forgive him. Right now, Lilith Astor was still alive, and her power was immense. But as soon as she died, who in the Astor family would care about a pretty boy consort, a walking sperm bank? Then it would be her turn to trample on Jax. That brother of hers was sorely in need of a lesson. With such a vile personality as his older sister, beating him half to death wouldn't be excessive, would it? Scarlett gritted her teeth, a vicious glint in her eyes. Their father was also at his wit's end. His company, Pierce Technologies, was closely tied to Pierce Financial. Morgan's scandal was having a ripple effect on his own business. He had been calling in favors everywhere to get the story suppressed, but in this storm, no one dared to cross the Astors. The name Lilith Astor alone was enough to make executives across the city tremble. Jax is just too vicious. He knew his sister valued her reputation more than her life, and he deliberately made her post that video. His intentions are purely evil. Their father raged, but he was powerless. He couldn't just storm Moonshadow Estate and drag Jax out. That would be a death sentence. The feeling of hating him but being unable to do anything about it was suffocating. Sierra, the fifth sister, had been ordered to kneel for 3 days, but had collapsed from weakness on the first. The doctor diagnosed it as a psychosomatic illness, brought on by severe stress and depression. To Eleanor, this was just Sierra being overly dramatic. She told her to rest and paid her no further mind. Her priority, as always, was Caleb. His physical frailty was far more serious than the mental torment of her other children. She knew which was more important. Just then, Sierra, who had been lying in bed for days, appeared at the top of the stairs. She wore only a thin nightgown, and she looked as if she had lost a tremendous amount of weight, the bones of her spine clearly visible. When Eleanor saw her, she frowned deeply. How did Sierra get like this? It was just a minor psychological issue. Is she trying to play the victim to steal my attention away from Caleb? The thought was irritating, but she was still Sierra's mother. She signaled for Scarlett to help her support Sierra, ignoring the broken glass at her feet. Sierra, if you're not well, you should be in bed, Eleanor said, exasperated. I've had Maria sending up broths and tonics for days. Why haven't they helped at all? Did Maria drink them herself? Otherwise, how can my Sierra be getting worse instead of better? Eleanor was at her wit's end. She was good at taking care of her children. As long as she kept them physically healthy, she had done her duty as a mother. Seeing Sierra in this sickly state frustrated her. She had always raised them this way. Why wasn't it working now? The housekeeper, Maria, rushed out. Ma'am, you have me wrong. I didn't drink Miss Sierra's medicine. It's Miss Sierra who refuses to drink it. The shouting in the living room gave Sierra a headache. She clutched her head and let out a sharp cry for them to be quiet. Then, she turned a cold, sneering gaze on the one person everyone had been deliberately ignoring and protecting. Caleb. He was lying languidly on the sofa, covered with Eleanor's jacket, the very picture of comfortable convalescence. Sierra was pale, her lips trembling. She could see that all their shouting and drama was a deliberate smokescreen to shield the real culprit. But why? Because Caleb was weak? Because he was the youngest? Did that give him a free pass to lie, steal, and hurt people without consequence? That's right, I won't drink your phony tonics, and I won't stay in this hypocritical prison. She spat. You're all blind, deliberately protecting that little monster, Caleb. Every lie he's told, every crime he's committed, you're all accomplices. Without another word, Sierra, looking small and fragile, summoned a surge of fury, picked up a heavy vase, and hurled it directly at Caleb. She finally saw the truth. In this family, Caleb was the real jinx, the real menace. Jax had done nothing wrong. He had given everything for this family, and all he got in return was pain. Now that she was in his position, she finally understood what it meant to be utterly alone. But in the instant the vase left her hand, Scarlett, who was closest to Caleb, threw herself in front of him. Caleb, watch out! The vase shattered against Scarlett's back, a sickening crunch followed by the sight of blood blooming through her clothes. Sierra froze, her youth and inexperience betrayed by her sudden panic. The next moment, her father strode forward and slapped her across the face. Crack! The sound echoed through the silent living room. Sierra's ears rang, her head spinning. But the deeper wound was to her heart. Her father had always doted on her. Now he looked at his own hand in disbelief, then at the blood trickling from the corner of her mouth where he had struck her. His towering figure seemed to shrink, almost unsteady on his feet. Why had their happy family become so broken? It was, after Jax came back, it was all Jax's fault. That jinx had brought nothing but chaos to their home. Their father straightened, his face hardening back into the mask of paternal authority. Caleb is your brother. He is kind-hearted by nature. He is this family's lucky charm. He would never do anything wrong. If anyone is to blame, it's Jax for being so malicious, and your sister for being stupid enough to fall for his tricks. Sierra, you deserve that slap. Maybe it will teach you a lesson. Now, go and kneel and apologize to your sister, or you can get out of this house too. Sierra bit her lip, the suppressed emotions inside her with no outlet. She felt like she would suffocate if she stayed in this house a moment longer. She looked down and let out a cold, bitter laugh. Fine, I'll get out, she screamed. I don't want to be in this family anymore. But where could she go? She knew she was wrong now. She had misunderstood Jax so terribly. If she could just beg for his forgiveness. He had always been so good to her, so tolerant. He would take her in, wouldn't he? Morning at Moonshadow Estate. As Jax opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was Lilith snuggled sweetly in his arms. Without makeup, her beauty was clear and pure, with a touch of natural innocence, a world away from the bewitching, domineering woman of the night before. He watched her quietly for a long moment. Knowing they had important business today, he was about to get up when a soft hand moved under the covers and rested on his thigh. Hiss! Jax felt a flicker of panic. He had certainly been diligent last night, but he couldn't guarantee he had fully satisfied the volatile heiress's appetite. He looked down at the woman in his arms, who seemed harmless but was, in fact, exquisitely dangerous. Their eyes met. "Lily, you're awake already?" he asked softly. "I was going to get up first and let you sleep in." He expertly began to stroke her hair, the comforting gesture a well-practiced skill for soothing his wife. I thought you were going to run away again," Lilith murmured, her body coiling around him under the sheets like a python, her skin smooth and warm, enveloping him completely. "Baby, trying to escape will earn you a punishment, you know." Her dark red hair fanned out, a stark contrast to her beautiful face, making her look breathtakingly stunning. The innocent look in her eyes was now tinged with a wicked flavor, and he had to admit, a naughty Lilith was even more intoxicating. Jack swallowed hard. Though Lilith had certainly expanded his horizons last night, all of his experience in that department had been dedicated to one person, his volatile, beautiful wife. He was still very much a novice, but now a sense of urgency hit him. As a man, he realized he needed to do some research. It wasn't enough to capture her stomach with his cooking. He needed to capture her heart and body in the bedroom. Not that he really had to do much hooking. If he just lay there, she'd pounce and devour him anyway. But more knowledge couldn't hurt. Ahem. "Whatever punishment Lily has in mind for me, I'll accept it," he said, his voice a little hoarse. "But, baby, let's not overdo it. It's not good for your health." The advice was sincere. He felt utterly drained, but he was constantly worried about her fragile health. Nourishing her body back to strength wasn't an overnight task. They needed to be careful. Before he could finish the thought, Lilith hooked her arm around his neck and pulled him back down into the soft bed. The face before him was radiant, her skin flawless, and her lips an inviting red. She was practically glowing with vitality. Wait, was this a better tonic than any medicinal soup? Jax was stunned. Still think it's bad for my health, Jax?" she whispered, her hot breath tickling his ear. "Baby, you're my medicine. All I need is you. To have you completely." Her lips brushed his earlobe, a possessive, gentle kiss. And then another round of cultivation began. Jax was spent. Lilith, however, rose from the bed looking refreshed and invigorated. She sat at the vanity, pinning up her long hair, her aura once again cool, regal, and formidable. Jax curled up under the covers, calling out weakly, "Lily, my love. I want some soup." He needed to recuperate. A lot. Lilith had anticipated this. Soon, a maid brought in the tonics, 10 large bowls of a potent, restorative broth. Jax felt his ears burn. Did this mean the entire staff of Moonshadow Estate now knew what the lady of the house had done to him all night? It was mortifying. But Lilith was completely unfazed. She brought a bowl over, personally helping the boneless Jax wash up before feeding him spoonful by spoonful. Her service was impeccable. Ugh, that's enough, that's enough. After the 5th bowl, Jax felt like he was over-caffeinated on soup. He was full. "Really?" she purred. "One last sip. It's an import. You have to drink it." In the end, Jax's ears turned an even deeper shade of red. It was indeed an imported soup, fed to him mouth to mouth. The Astor estate. Even though Cornelius Astor had deliberately moved his birthday banquet up a day, the old estate was still draped in black crepe, just as Lilith had ordered. The grand entrance was a sea of black, flanked by massive funeral wreaths. It was common knowledge that the old patriarch still lived here, so as the distinguished guests and Astor clan elders arrived, they all had the distinct, unsettling feeling they were attending Cornelius's funeral. Inside the main hall, Cornelius sat in a wheelchair, his face pale and drawn, and 4 drip attached to his wrist. His expression was grim. The black crepe hanging above the grand, righteousness and integrity plaque behind him only enhanced the unique funerary atmosphere. "Insolence. Does she think I'm dead already? Is she trying to rush me into my grave?" he rasped. "She claims it's a memorial for Luna, but who doesn't see this as a deliberate show of force against me? I'm her grandfather. She's alive. She made it back to this family, all because I paved the way for her. Lilith. She's been bewitched by that pretty boy. When they arrive, that man who has poisoned my granddaughter's mind must be killed." Cornelius's gaze was cold. He was once the head of the Astor dynasty, and even old and confined to a wheelchair, his presence was formidable. "And I heard Leo got into some trouble with that pretty boy recently." Another useless one. When he mentioned Leo, a flicker of humanity returned to his expression. Though his words were harsh, the gloom in his eyes lifted slightly. "Master Astor, Leo is still young, only 17. He can be reckless, but because of that, the young miss didn't go too hard on him," said Sean, the butler pushing his wheelchair. He had served the old man for over 50 years and was his most trusted confidant. In a way, that's a good thing. Report. A man rushed frantically into the hall. The banquet hadn't started yet. and few guests had arrived. The man was one of those Cornelius had sent to fetch his grandsons. "What is it? Can't you see the master needs his rest?" Sean snapped, then nodded. "Speak. It's not good. The young Master Leo offended the new consort at Moonshadow Estate a few days ago. The young miss disciplined him. They say he bled all night, and his arm was nearly useless. He was rushed to the hospital, and they just managed to save it. He'll probably never be able to lift anything heavy again. When I went to fetch him, he was still in the ICU. The banquet, I don't think he can make it." The messenger's legs trembled, his fear of Lilith's cruelty deepening. Sean's breath caught. He had just said she wouldn't harm Leo. The words felt like a slap in the face. A chill went down his spine. The thought of Lilith arriving with her new husband. He was afraid. Crack! Cornelius swept an antique vase off a nearby table. "Lilith! She grows more heartless by the day," he roared, his face a mask of venomous fury. "For an outsider, she disregards her own brother's life. What does she care about anymore?" The rage was too much. Sean scrambled to put an oxygen mask on his face, and Cornelius took several deep, shuddering breaths before he calmed down. Meanwhile, a low, black Rolls-Royce Phantom glided silently toward the estate. The Astor estate was a masterpiece of classical garden design, with elegant pavilions, winding corridors, and picturesque views at every turn. But this was the home of the world's top dynasty. The flagstones were white jade, the intricate carvings on the pavilions were sandalwood, and the landscaping featured rare and priceless plants. It was opulence hidden in plain sight. Today, Jax wore a custom-tailored suit. Though only a sophomore in college, his tall, lean frame was perfectly suited for it. Combined with his handsome features, the suit, personally commissioned by Lilith, elevated his presence to another level. He exuded the air of a noble young master. Lilith wore a stunning black cheongsam. The golden peony embroidery wasn't flashy, but totally majestic, giving her this powerful, queen-like vibe. The high slit of the dress revealed a tantalizing glimpse of a silk-stockinged leg, and her red-soled high heels completed the look. There was a certain, wifely glow about her, likely the result of his recent nourishment. The thought made Jax feel a small flicker of pride. "Jax, I am your husband. I am your greatest strength and your ultimate trump card," Lilith had told him. "My place, my power, my fortune. I am willing to share it all with you. My decision is law." Sean opened the car door. "Young Miss Consort, we have arrived." As Jax stepped out, all eyes were on him. The assembled elites watched as the handsome young man emerged, his shoulders broad, his legs long, his presence outshining many of the movie stars among them. "Damn, who's that?" He actually got out of Ms. Astor's car. "Is that the legendary new favorite? TSK, he's certainly got the looks. No wonder they say he's tamed the monster Heiress. Good heavens, he seems quite young, probably not even out of college. So Ms. Astor's taste leans this way. No wonder my 27-year-old pilot cousin tried to seduce her and got thrown into the lake." "Oh, so your cousin didn't make it?" "He's resting peacefully," the man said, his smile tight. "I'm a loyal relative. I'll make sure to send a lovely wreath to the lakeside on his birthday." The group fell silent. Yeah, if you wanted to live, it was best to shut up. Jax exited the car and, with the grace of a gentleman, offered his hand to Lilith. Her fingers, tipped with blood-red polish, rested in his palm. A moment later, an enchanting, powerful figure emerged, commanding the attention of everyone present. Lilith Astor had arrived. The monster was here. Fear was a palpable thing, but the guests pasted on welcoming smiles. "Good evening, Ms. Astor." "Ms. Astor, you look more beautiful than ever." Lilith had heard it all before. She gave a dismissive wave, her expression flat. "Today is the anniversary of my sister's death. If you're dressed too festively, I suggest you leave now. Don't offend her spirit." Her words sent a shockwave through the crowd. Many of the ladies in brightly colored gowns turned pale, immediately arranging for more somber attire to be delivered. They had come to curry favor with Cornelius, but one look at Lilith made them realize they had backed the wrong horse. In the Astor dynasty, there was only one ruler now, Lilith. Her word was law. If she declared this birthday party a funeral, they would all have to mourn. Ignoring the others, she took Jax's hand and strode into the estate. The grounds were undeniably magnificent. Jax couldn't help but admire the scenery as they walked. Lilith noticed the appreciation in his eyes and paused. "Jax, do you like this place?" He felt a little embarrassed. This was her childhood home, a symbol of immense power and wealth. Did he look like a country bumpkin, awestruck by it all? Before he could answer, Lilith pulled him close, pressing his back against the pillar of the pavilion. "If you like it, I'll have an identical one built for you on the grounds of Moonshadow Estate," she whispered, her voice a low, cold hum. Too many people have died here, Jax. I don't want to live with you in a graveyard. A place like this. It's a fitting retirement home for that old man. Her words were chilling, but they warmed Jax's heart. He was moved by her fierce devotion, but he also remembered the stories she'd told him of her childhood. She hated this place. Yet, for him, she would build a perfect copy. The possessiveness of her love was staggering, and he loved it. He shook his head. If she hated it, then so did he. You don't have to. Moonshadow Estate is perfect. Any place with you is perfect. Since submitting to his volatile wife, the sweet words came effortlessly. It was intoxicating. TSK, your mouth gets sweeter every day, Jax, she purred, her long leg brushing against his trousers, a slow, deliberate caress that was pure seduction. Come here, let me see if it tastes as sweet as it sounds. Jax's heart stuttered, but he was also expectant. A secret, intimate moment in this beautiful garden. It was thrilling. From the shadows, Nathan sighed. Did he not count as a person? He dutifully kept his distance, providing security for the young Mrs. domineering displays of affection. Smack Lilith hooked her arms around Jax's waist, rising on her toes, her red lips claiming his with a fierce possessiveness. She couldn't get enough of him, wanted to be wrapped around him at all times, to feel him owned by her, to have him become a part of her. But those thoughts were too dark, they would scare him away. So she hid her monstrous desires, stealing moments like this, satisfying her overwhelming need for him in small, stolen kisses. Ms. Astor, your mother wishes to see you. Nathan, having intercepted a messenger from a safe distance, spoke at the perfect moment. This was the other reason Lilith had returned. Julian had brought their mother back from the psychiatric hospital. She has one condition. She wants to see you alone at the lake pavilion. Lilith's first instinct was to refuse. I'm not, she began. She had no desire to see that mentally ill woman. Of course, whether she was truly ill was a secret only the Astors knew. Ms. Astor, Nathan continued carefully, your mother also said she would tell you how your sister really. He trailed off, knowing he didn't need to finish. In his 5 years with Lilith, he knew that besides Jax, the person she cared most about was the late Luna Astor. No one knew how she died, but Lilith seemed to. After the bloody purge on her 18th birthday, she had personally erected a memorial plaque for Luna in the family shrine. It was as if Luna's death was only truly acknowledged then. The Astor family had never even looked for her body. Luna was like another Lilith, one who hadn't managed to kill her way out of that hell. The memorial was for Luna, but it was also for the part of herself that had died with her. At the mention of her sister, Lilith's expression tightened. Jax sensed her turmoil. He wasn't so fragile that he couldn't survive for a few minutes outside her protection. Lily, you should go, he said, giving her a reassuring look. Don't worry, I'll wait for you right here. Nothing will happen. He glanced ahead. Not far from them was the very lake he had been pushed into in his past life. But Jax was no longer a sitting duck. Lilith finally nodded, but she still left Nathan with him. Nathan, protect the consort. If he loses a single hair on his head, I'll shave yours. Nathan thought, what if I'm just going bald naturally? My life is so hard. As soon as Lilith was out of sight, the atmosphere shifted. Jax could feel eyes on him. He feigned ignorance, following Nathan toward a designated rest area. Halfway there, just as he expected, they were intercepted. A portly, older man blocked their path, flanked by half a dozen bodyguards. He was clearly looking for trouble. Jax remained impassive. Nathan's eyes went cold. The man, Lilith's second uncle, Victor Astor, looked Jax up and down with a slimy, appraising gaze. Well, when did the Astor family acquire such a top-shelf pretty boy? My niece seems quite fond of this one. Even has you guarding him like a precious treasure. A fine specimen. Excellent physique. His eyes were filled with a vulgar, lecherous light. Jax felt a wave of disgust. He remembered this man from his past life. Victor had lost much of his power within the dynasty after Lilith's ruthless consolidation, and he was bitter. He was her uncle. Why should he be pushed aside? He had been waiting for a chance to strike at her weakness. And now here it was. If he could possess, and thus humiliate, what belonged to Lilith, he could challenge her authority. After all, the 7 previous husbands had died without a whisper. What was one more? Victor, watch your mouth, Nathan said, his voice low and dangerous. The consort is the young Mrs. Husband. He's a master of this house. If you continue with this disrespect, don't blame me for being impolite. Victor's face darkened. You, a servant, dare to speak to me this way? Seize him, and bind that boy. Consort, be careful. Nathan shoved 2 dark objects into Jax's hands and launched himself at Victor's bodyguards. He was skilled, but they were Aster-level security. He could handle them, but would take time. Jax looked down at the handgun and grenade in his hands. It was just like his past life. Then, he had been a terrified college student. He had thrown the weapons away and run, straight into the trap set for him at the lake by Julian and Leo. This time, he pocketed the gifts from Nathan, put on a mask of pure terror, and sprinted towards the lake. He's getting away, Victor wheezed, chasing after him with his entourage. The path to the lake had several blind spots created by dense landscaping. Jax used one to his advantage. As Victor lumbered past, he felt the cold, hard press of a gun barrel against the back of his head. Jax, Victor stammered. You pretty boy. What my niece can give you, I can give you more. Consider my OMPH. Before he could finish his vile offer, Jax had stuffed a rag torn from his own suit into Victor's mouth. In one smooth motion, he spun the larger man around, lifted a sharp-edged rock, and brought it down with brutal, precise force on his groin. A muffled, agonized scream was all Victor could manage before the pain stole his voice. Tiske, your breath is fouler than a sewer. Jax sneered, his voice laced with contempt. I'm not interested, so take your disgusting offers and shove them. This was the retribution he had been denied in his past life. Victor's eyes widened in horror as Jax pulled a small, folding knife from his pocket, the blade glinting in the dim light. You know, Jax said with a strange, tilted smile, you can't make an omelet without breaking a couple of eggs. Victor's muffled pleas were useless. A moment after he fell, Jax had already injected him with a fast-acting tranquilizer. He had come to this place prepared. Now, with Victor helpless, Jax slowly pulled on a pair of rubber gloves he had brought. He had never performed surgery, but he had watched Lilith's doctors enough to have a good idea. He leaned in close. Don't worry, he whispered. I'll be quick. With a clean, efficient slice, it was done. The man fainted from the sheer terror and pain. Jax stood up, disgusted. He kicked the half-dead man into the bushes, peeled off the bloody gloves, and continued toward the lake. He mussed his hair and clothes, his face a perfect picture of panic and fear. This time, Leo wasn't at the lake. He was likely still recovering. But Julian was there in his wheelchair, and with him was another familiar face. Victor's son, Vincent. A father-son team. How convenient. Who are you? Jax gasped, playing the part of the cornered animal. Vincent stepped forward, launching into the same barrage of insults as Leo had in the past life, followed by Julian's cold, psychologically manipulative words. This time, Jax didn't believe a single one. He stumbled toward Julian's wheelchair, as if in a daze, then suddenly lunged forward and ripped the expensive blanket off Julian's legs. Vincent froze. Julian's paralyzed legs were his ultimate taboo. Before anyone could react, Jax's hand moved in a blur. A small blade appeared, and with a few flicks of his wrist, he shredded Julian's trousers, exposing the scarred, atrophied limbs beneath. Wow, that's ugly, Jax said, his voice dripping with mock sympathy. You're Julian, right? Lily's big brother? I hear you'll never walk again. Hey, look on the bright side. At least you get a wheelchair. Your dad is stuck in bed. See? You're the lucky one. The blatant insult turned Julian's face to stone. He realized, too late, that he had been played. How'd Jax know? You dare to humiliate me? Julian hissed. You're nothing but Lily's toy. Vincent, push him. Jax, just jump. Julian tried, shifting tactics. I can help you. I can get you out of Moonshadow Estate, give you your freedom. All you have to do is jump. Jax just smiled, pulling out the handgun. He fumbled with it theatrically, then aimed at Vincent, who was advancing on him. Bang! Vincent crumpled to the ground, clutching his leg. Oops, Jax said brightly. Slippery trigger. Then he walked around behind Julian, grabbed the handles of the wheelchair, and with a powerful shove, sent it sailing off the edge of the pavilion and into the freezing water. Bye-bye, he called out cheerfully. A stunned Nathan finally caught up, his eyes wide as he stared at the scene. Vincent shot, and the great Julian Aster sinking into the lake in his wheelchair. Consort, Nathan gasped. Are you? All right, your mental state, I mean. Jax turned, his face calm, almost serene. Looks like he needed to cool off. Nathan was a little stunned. It seemed his boss's cool exterior was cracking. He was so flustered he was misreading everything. When Julian Aster hit the ice-cold water, the splash was enormous, threatening to spray onto Jax's face. The young man took a timely step back, sweeping an innocent gaze over the onlookers. Well now, the eldest son of the great Aster dynasty certainly has character. Even with a crippled leg, his passion for fitness is unstoppable. Swimming, working out. He never misses a beat. Truly an inspiration to us all. Jax's voice was dripping with sarcasm, loud enough for Julian to hear, clearly from the water. But Julian had no time to spare for Jax's mockery. The instant he plunged into the icy lake, a piercing cold shot through him. He felt his heavy, lifeless legs, numb for years, twitch from the shock. For a split second, he felt a jolt of terror mixed with a flash of elation. His legs. He hadn't felt the slightest sensation in them for years. He had been the perfect heir. Brilliant, tall, his posture as straight and unyielding as a pine tree. His methods were ruthless, his ambition ironclad. He was the first in line to inherit the Astor Empire. His past was one of pride and privilege. Like Morgan Pierce, he was the eldest, the one who carried all the family's hopes. For a man like that, the most devastating blow was to have everything he prided himself on shattered before his eyes. And for Julian Astor, a man in his prime, losing his legs and being condemned to a life of disability was the cruelest punishment imaginable. The true torture, Lily's masterstroke, was allowing him to handle minor family affairs, just enough to remind him of the center of power he could never again touch. The shame was a poison that would torment him for the rest of his miserable life. Lily's reputation as a vicious little monster was, at times, well-earned. What are you talking about, inspiration? Jax, don't you dare lie. I saw you. You pushed my cousin. Vincent Astor, of course, sided with Julian. Seeing that the deed was done, he knew he had to capitalize on it. Julian's your brother-in-law, for God's sake. You'll pay for this, you venomous snake. He quickly ordered the bodyguards to jump in and rescue Julian, then immediately pulled out his phone, aiming the camera at Jax. I'm recording this, he shouted. The security cameras in the area had been disabled beforehand, part of Julian's own plot. Vincent knew he couldn't leave without a shred of evidence. This could be the first step in toppling Jax Pierce. Besides, Cornelius Astor himself had invited the family elders today. Even if Lily had the family in a chokehold, she couldn't completely ignore the elders in front of everyone. He was convinced that if they could get leverage on Jax, they would have a grip on Lily's one weakness. Their power was limited, but even cutting off one of Lily's fingers would be a victory worth celebrating. Jax looked at the phone recording him and, with a cheerful grin, gave the camera a universally friendly gesture. He flipped him off with both hands. Vincent was speechless. Nathan was also speechless. In the next moment, while Vincent was still frozen in shock, Jax shot out a leg and kicked him squarely into the frigid lake. Don't tell me. You didn't think you were getting out of a little swim, did you? Jax said, calmly retracting his leg with a faint, elegant smile. Splash! Vincent hit the water with a shriek. The bodyguards, who had been focused on Julian, now looked like dumplings being tossed into a pot, frantically trying to rescue two drowning men instead of one. The ice lake was suddenly a scene of chaotic activity. Help! Somebody help me! Vincent, it turned out, couldn't swim. The moment he hit the water, he began flailing in a blind panic, his soul practically leaving his body. The phone he'd been clutching was now sinking to the bottom of the lake. Julian, though a competent swimmer in his prime, was now struggling to stay afloat with his deadweight legs. He hadn't had any real physical training in years and was tiring quickly. He thought rescue was imminent, but then another body joined him in the water. Vincent was a loud, thrashing mess, his screams grating on Julian's frayed nerves. Seeing a bodyguard approach, Julian didn't spare a thought for his cousin. Get me first, he commanded. Jax, observing from ashore, suddenly raised his voice. Vincent, you can't swim, can you? It looks like you're about to go under. Your cousin there seems to know what he's doing, so why is he telling the guards to save himself first? He clicked his tongue. Tisk, TSK. And just a moment ago, I thought your loyalty was so unshakable. Turns out, when it comes to life and death, he'll leave you to die without a second thought. Jax's voice was so loud, he might as well have been using a megaphone. Everyone in the water heard him. Julian's eyes turned cold. He was already struggling, the freezing water sucking the warmth from his body. Jax's commentary was like gasoline on a fire. Jax, you say one more word, and I'll have your tongue cut out. Julian sputtered, flailing as his strength waned. He saw the bodyguards closing in and finally felt a flicker of hope. But just as the nearest guard was about to reach him, a gunshot cracked through the air. A bullet zipped past the bodyguard's face, grazing his ear. A flower of blood instantly bloomed on the lake's surface, a strangely beautiful sight. Jax, feeling much more practiced than the first time, lowered the pistol. Whoops, he said with a theatrical shrug. My hand slipped. Gun just went off. He smiled sweetly. What were you saying, big brother? I didn't quite catch that. You know, you really should be more careful. Even if you want to swim, now's not the time. The funeral, the birthday party, is about to start. You shouldn't delay. Just swim toward the shore. Kick your legs really hard, like a toad. He paused, tapping his temple. Oh, that's right. My mistake. You don't have any legs, do you? Jax's words were a relentless barrage, each one a dagger to the heart. The gun in his hand never wavered. The other bodyguards froze, not daring to approach. Jax, you bastard. Julian seethed. Get me out of here right now. If I miss the party, I'll... Jax tilted his head, his expression a mask of pure innocence. You'll what? You gonna bite me? I've had a terrible fear of dogs since I was a child. He sighed dramatically. But what can I do? I was born with the heart of a saint. Nathan, go find some long poles. I'll personally rescue our dear brother and bring him ashore. Nathan thought to himself, how did I never realize the boss has such a talent for playing the victim? But despite his internal monologue, Nathan obediently had someone fetch the poles. The Astor staff was efficient. Long wooden poles appeared in moments. Boss, you are far too benevolent, Nathan said, handing a pole to Jax with a look of solemn admiration. Aw, Nate, my boy, Jax said, patting his shoulder gravely. You get me. He took the pole and started prodding at the water. He easily extended the long pole toward Julian. Grab on, brother. Your brother-in-law is here to save you. His words were magnanimous, leaving Julian no room to deny their new familial bond. Julian's face was as cold as the water he was submerged in. He knew this was Jax forcing him to accept a favor he had no choice but to take. It was extortion, plain and simple. Julian gritted his teeth and reached for the pole. The icy water was brutal. The initial tingling in his legs had long since vanished into numbness, a sensation that filled him with dread. He had to get out. Survival was paramount. Just as his fingers were about to close around the pole, it suddenly jabbed him in the chest, pushing him further away. Julian watched, helpless, as Jax's heroic rescue sent him drifting farther from the shore. Veins popped on Julian's forehead. He couldn't take it anymore. Jax, you. Before he could finish, Jax started yelling, waving the pole erratically. Brother, who else is in there with you? Why are you so determined to stay in the lake? I told you to grab on. Don't let your hands slip. Julian felt like his lungs were about to explode. He was at a complete disadvantage. Just wait, he thought. Wait until I get out of this. He grit his teeth and continued to thrash through the water, trying to grab the swinging pole. The next moment, the pole swerved. Julian lunged and missed again, his face plunging back into the icy water. Hey now, stop letting your hands slip, Jax shouted, this time expertly slapping Julian across the face with the pole. Julian was screaming obscenities in his head. Glug, glug, glug. His body was giving out. He'd been in the water for too long, and his already weakened constitution was failing. His body began to sink. It looked like he was about to die with a lungful of regret. The bodyguards panicked. Forgetting the gun, they prepared to dive for Julian's sinking form. The next second, Jax nonchalantly held up a hand grenade. He casually brought it to his mouth, as if he was about to pull the pin with his teeth and toss them a little surprise. The bodyguards froze. We're good, please don't. Julian sank for a few seconds before a primal urge for survival made him struggle one last time, breaking the surface. His pride was finally shattered. Help! Help me! He gasped weakly. Brother, in-law, I'm begging you. Get me out. I can't hold on. Jax was finally satisfied. He was about to reel him in when a familiar presence washed over him from behind. The powerful, yet alluring scent of a beautiful woman wrapped around him, sending an instinctive chill down his spine. He had been having too much fun. Lily had originally left Julian with a shred of dignity, a way out. But he had gotten carried away and was about to actually kill her brother. Lily had arrived the moment Julian was pushed into the water. Seeing it wasn't Jax, she had stopped and simply watched from a distance. She had long since noticed Jax was different, and she was curious to see just how different he had become. And she had to admit, the new Jax was much more to her liking. She liked him. She really, really liked him. So, Lily had witnessed the entire spectacle. Jax's operation was fierce, a masterclass in torment. And the result, her brother was about to become a corpse. Lily's eyes narrowed as she strode forward in her high heels. With a single glance, she commanded Jax to hand over the rescue pole. Jax pouted. Well, damn, I think I overdid it this time. When Julian saw Lily, he froze for a second, then immediately put on his weakest, most pathetic act. Lily, please, save your brother. My legs, they're useless. I can't hold on any longer. Showing weakness in front of Lily Astor was not a simple act. It required him to gut his own pride and offer it up as a sacrifice. To save his life, he had to speak of his own disability. "Fine, come here," Lily said, extending the pole, her expression as placid as ever. In that moment, she was a divine savior in Julian's eyes. He thrashed toward her with all his remaining strength. Then, Lily calmly swung the pole and cracked him squarely across the face. The solid thud of the blow sent Julian spinning back into the water, where he sank without another ripple. Silence. The only sound in the entire garden was the splashing of the men still in the lake. Even the screaming Vincent had gone quiet. Lily straightened up gracefully and glanced at Jax, who was standing beside her like a student being disciplined. She swept her gaze over him and lifted her chin slightly, a gesture that seemed to say, "Tiska, watch and learn, Jax." Jax was stunned, but mostly he felt a thrill of pride and exhilaration. He leaned in close to Lily and, catching her off guard, planted a loud smooch on her cheek. "Nice technique, honey." Lily raised her chin again, her voice dripping with arrogance. "My technique is excellent. In all things." She paused, her eyes glinting. "Wouldn't you agree, Jax?" The tips of Jax's ears turned crimson. Was this really the time for flirting? But the truth was, when Lily wanted to flirt, it was always the right time. He was just along for the ride, and he wasn't about to complain. Vincent, finally at his limit, let out one last desperate scream. "Lily, cousin Lily, help me." "Noisy," Lily said, her eyes flashing with cold annoyance. In one fluid motion, she snatched the grenade from Jax's hand, pulled the pin, and tossed it into the middle of the lake. Jax's jaw dropped. Nathan was already sprinting for cover. The boss lady is on a rampage. Everyone for themselves. The entire crowd froze. Holy hell, the psycho heiress really does have a short fuse. Lily's movements were as smooth as flowing water, without a moment's hesitation. Even Jax, standing right beside her, was stunned. He knew his own methods of revenge could be a little unhinged, but he had never imagined this. Vincent had been desperately doggy-paddling, his will to live so strong he'd taught himself to swim on the spot. He'd screamed for Lily, hoping to tattle on Jax. After all, Jax was just some boy toy Lily had picked up on a whim. Surely he couldn't be more important to her than her own cousin, Julian. The reality check came swiftly and explosively. Everyone watched, dumbfounded, as the grenade with its pin pulled sail through the air and landed right near Vincent. He paddled for his life, trying frantically to get away, but a human could never outrun an explosion. The next second, boom, the ground of the old estate shook violently. Even the pavilion where Jax and Lily stood trembled. As for the two acquaintances in the pond, they were about to become very well done. The crowd stared, speechless. After throwing the grenade, Lily's first move was to throw herself into Jax's arms, shrinking into his chest with a look of utter fragility. "Jax, I'm scared," she whimpered. Yes, she thought, if Chloe Vance were here, this is exactly the pose she would strike, the expression she would wear. Lily was confident she'd captured at least 70% of the performance, if not 80. However, as Nathan and the other bodyguards watched their boss put on her damsel in distress act, a collective ellipsis floated over their heads. You gotta be kidding me. The scene was as absurd as seeing Snow White pull out a bazooka or Mother Teresa winning a bar fight. It was terrifying. Jax, after a moment of mental whiplash, recovered quickly. He wrapped an arm around Lily's slender waist, pulling her closer, and murmured soothingly, "It's okay, Lilybug. Don't be scared." He patted her head, trying to calm her, though his hand was shaking just a little. "They're all cooked. Dead. Half dead now." "Good," Lily said, her voice muffled against his chest. Finally, some quiet. She pulled back and glanced at the still-smoking pond, her expression flat. "All right, whether they're alive or dead. Fish them all out." Nathan thought, the boss lady's methods for shutting people up are as insane as ever. Mr. Pierce still has a few years of training to go. And so, the bodyguards who hadn't jumped in to rescue the young masters now began a new recovery mission. Soon, a mangled and bloody Vincent was hauled ashore. Following him was Julian, who had been a bit farther from the blast. Though he'd only been hit by the shockwave, the multiple near-drownings had left him with barely a breath in his body. He no longer possessed the condescending arrogance he'd shown Jax earlier. The tables had turned completely. Jax was still impeccably dressed in his suit, a beautiful woman in his arms. Julian, however, was a crippled, pathetic wreck, looking like a drowned dog. Seeing the stark contrast, Jax felt a surge of pure, unadulterated satisfaction. The commotion in the garden was too loud to ignore. Cornelius Astor, who had been in the front hall drinking tea with the family elders, his face a thundercloud, was preparing to lambaste Lily for the sacrilegious act of hanging funeral wreaths at his birthday celebration. But before they could finish their first cup of hot tea, they heard the massive explosion. Boom! The tremor was impossible to miss. Cornelius's face changed drastically. "Someone, tell me what's happening," he roared. "This is mutiny. In the Astor estate, someone dares to cause such a disturbance." The invited elders and distinguished guests were also horrified. This was the family home of New York City's #1 financial dynasty. An explosion? If it was another family, it was a declaration of war. But if the Astors were fighting among themselves, well, looking at the entire family, there was only one person audacious enough to pull a stunt like this: the fearless, monstrous Heiress. Soon, a messenger rushed back. "Mr. Astor, sir, please don't worry. It was just the young miss setting off a celebratory firework by the ice lake in the front garden." The servant stammered. "She said it was a surprise for your birthday." It seems the young master and Mr. Vincent were just a little too eager to present their own gifts and got too close to the firework. They got singed. The servant's story grew more absurd with every word, until he could barely continue. Cornelius understood immediately. It was Lily, stirring up trouble again. In the entire Astor clan, only she was brazen enough to create such chaos. But this was the family estate. The Astor ancestors were sleeping here. The ancestral hall was just a stone's throw from the ice lake. Her actions were a blatant disrespect to their heritage. Cornelius couldn't sit still any longer. He was, after all, the highest-ranking member of the family. Lily's actions were a direct challenge to his authority. If he didn't punish her, he might as well get measured for his coffin. Outrageous. Absolutely outrageous, he seethed. Does she really think that story will fool this old man? She truly is a cold-blooded, heartless little monster. On this happy occasion, she won't even spare her own brother. I will act on behalf of the ancestors and the entire Astor family and teach her a lesson. After his righteous declaration, Cornelius rose, leaning heavily on his dragon-headed cane. He may be old, but there was a reason he could still live peacefully in this house. The elders began murmuring amongst themselves, dredging up all of Lily's past acts of disrespect. The other guests whispered furtively, curious about what kind of drama could possibly involve explosives. Soon, a large procession followed Cornelius to the ice lake. "Hey, is that blood over there? Holy crap, isn't that Victor Astor? What happened to his crotch? Ew, what's bulging out his mouth? Oh my God, so much blood. Is he dead? Wow, these rich families really have a lot of bodies lying around. There's a whole pile by the lake, and look, another one over here." As Cornelius approached, leaning on his cane, he saw the familiar sandalwood prayer beads on Victor Astor's wrist. His eyes froze, and tears welled up. This was his second son. Cornelius's steps faltered. He had 3 sons. His eldest was paralyzed by a stroke. His second was now lying here, life or death unknown, and his third was missing. All of this, he suspected, was Lily's doing. "No, this can't be," he gasped. "Quickly, get him up, take him to a hospital, and find Lily. Get Lily from me right now, I swear I won't. Forgive her." Cornelius felt that if he held it in any longer, he would die of pure rage. He slammed his cane on the ground, his eyes fixed furiously on the lake. The next moment, a graceful, formidable figure in a tailored suit appeared before them. It was Lily, holding Jax's hand, walking toward them as if nothing was wrong. "Well now, what's wrong with you, old man?" she asked, her voice light. Then her eyes fell on the body. "And what happened to Uncle Victor?" She gasped, her eyes wide with manufactured shock and panic, as if she'd only just noticed his near-death state. "Lily, look at the fine work of that boy toy you brought back." Cornelius roared, his mind grasping for a target. "As your grandfather, I command you, hand over that pretty boy in your grasp to atone for what he's done to your uncle." He suspected who was behind this, of course. He assumed it was Lily's people. Such a brutal attack didn't seem like the work of a soft-faced boy. He demanded Jax because he couldn't touch Lily, so he would destroy what she seemed to care about, even if it was just a powerless plaything. "You must be joking, grandfather," Lily said, her beautiful eyes turning sharp and cold. "My Jax is pure and kind. He wouldn't even step on an ant. How could he possibly lay a hand on Uncle Victor?" She let a chilling smirk grace her lips. "If you're really looking for someone to blame, are you suggesting it was me?" Cornelius's lips trembled. He wanted to say it, but he knew better than to push this psycho too far. "Then you tell me, Lily, who else in this entire family would dare to do this to your uncle? If you want to frame someone, you'll always find a reason," she said dismissively. She tilted her head, her tone pure provocation. "And yes, let's say I did do it. So what? Her eyebrow arched. What are you going to do about it? Lily was utterly unfazed. She even had the leisure to secretly stroke Jax's palm, a small, intimate game between them. Jax thought, ahem, should I confess? Lily, you will go to the ancestral hall and kneel. I will personally administer the family discipline. 50 strikes. Cornelius's face was beet red, incited to near apoplexy by her arrogance. Excellent, Lily replied brightly. Nathan, move Victor to the ancestral hall. Grandfather has awarded him 50 strikes. Let's all go, shall we? We can witness whether the old man still has the strength to swing that cane 50 times. Her voice dropped, becoming deadly serious. Old man, 50 strikes. Not one less. The oppressive weight of her authority descended on the crowd. No one dared to defy her order. Insolence. You. Lily's eyes turned cold. She was losing her patience. She shot Nathan a look. Nathan wordlessly knelt down, scooped up a handful of dirt from a flower bed, walked over to Cornelius, and shoved it into the old man's mouth. Mr. Astor, Nathan murmured, his voice low but carrying a chilling threat. At your age, the dirt is already up to your neck. If you keep sticking your nose where it doesn't belong, my boss won't mind helping you bury it up to the top of your head. Cornelius froze, a wave of pure terror washing over him. He had thought Lily kept him around in the estate as a sign of filial piety, a way to appease the elders. He thought he was different from his paralyzed eldest son. He thought he held some leverage over her. But now he wasn't so sure. When this psycho heiress went on a rampage, everyone was equal. Jax watched as the fat, unconscious lump that was his Uncle Victor was effortlessly carried away. He felt he needed to be honest with Lily. Lily, he said quietly. Victor being half dead. That was me. She looked at him. I know. A slow smile spread across her face. You did very well, Jax. What do you want as a reward? Her eyes gleamed. Whatever I have, if you want it, it's yours. After leaving the Pierce family home, Sierra wandered through the streets of New York like a lost soul. She had nowhere to go. The truth was a constant, gnawing torment, making her feel like a tattered doll with the stuffing torn out. But she was still a Pierce. Her older sister, Morgan, was in trouble, and Sierra was terrified she might do something drastic. Without thinking, she found herself standing in front of the Pierce Financial Tower. She didn't visit Morgan often, but they were family. The security guard recognized her and let her in, though his eyes held a look of mocking curiosity. As Sierra walked through the lobby, her mind replayed moments from Kingston University, moments when Jax had been good to her. And she had never cherished it. She had taken it for granted. Back then, Jax never cared about his appearance. He wore the same few faded, cheap t-shirts he'd had when he first returned to the family. She had been embarrassed by him, ordering him to avoid her on campus, to not even speak to her. She had thought, we get the same $30,000 a month allowance. How can he still be wearing clothes that look like they're from a thrift store bin? She assumed he was gambling it all away. She believed he dressed poorly on purpose to make her feel sorry for him, to get more money from her to feed his addiction. So, every time she saw him in his shabby clothes, she treated him with contempt. She told him to get lost, or she made him take the fall for her own petty misdeeds on campus. Jax's reputation was already in the gutter. What was one more black mark? But he had been so good to her. When she skipped class, he would write out the notes for her, page after page of neat, comprehensive summaries. When she went out to clubs, he would follow her like a shadow, worried about her walking home alone at night. He would wait until she was safely inside her dorm before turning to leave, his thin frame swallowed by the darkness. Sometimes she'd look back and see his solitary figure, but she'd only felt that he brought it on himself. It wasn't like he didn't have money for food. Why the melodrama? So she had taken his kindness for granted time and time again. She'd let him take the blame, mocked him, trampled on his feelings. She couldn't even count how many times she had bullied him. Lost in thought, she had already entered Pierce Financial. Dude, check out this video. I saved it as my wallpaper. TSK, TSK. Never thought our CEO, so icy and professional, was a secret pole dancer. If I were her, I'd be too ashamed to show my face. I heard she actually came to work today. She's in her office right now, pretending to work on some project. She's already been exposed. What's with the high and mighty act? You think she slept her way to the top to build this company? All those investors she brought in. That slut doesn't deserve to be CEO. Someone else should take over. The vicious words stung Sierra's ears. This was Jax's revenge, a punishment her sister could not escape. Sierra quickened her pace, taking the elevator to the top-floor executive suite. The moment the doors opened, she saw that Morgan's office was besieged by a crowd of clients and investors. Ms. Pierce, why don't you come out? We'd like to personally discuss a new partnership. Come on, Morgan, stop hiding. Everyone's already seen everything. What's there to be shy about? Ms. Pierce, your brother really knows you, doesn't he? It's a shame to hide a body like that. Get out here, you bitch. Stop pretending you're some kind of saint and entertain your guests. Sierra stood frozen, horrified. These people were vicious, their words dripping with venom. Was this Jax's doing? Did he arrange this? Morgan was huddled under her desk, wrapped in a thick overcoat, layers upon layers of clothing cocooning her. Her eyes were bloodshot as she stared at the time on her phone, calculating when she could have the video deleted. But she knew, in her heart, she knew it was too late. The video had surely gone viral across the entire internet. Deleting it now would be pointless. Seeing this, Sierra's heart ached for her sister. She grabbed a nearby mop and charged into the crowd. "Get out of here, you bastards! Get out!" she screamed. "Don't you dare bully my sister. If you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police." She swung the mop wildly. "Get out. This is Pierce Financial. Even if there's a problem, it's not your place to interfere. Any employee who continues this will be fired on the spot. As for our partners, Pierce Financial will blacklist you permanently." Sierra had noticed that most of the troublemakers were from smaller firms. The heads of major corporations wouldn't waste their time on this kind of public humiliation. It was more likely they had sent these low-level proxies to curry favor with the Astor dynasty. Her words had some effect. Their mission was to humiliate Morgan, and that had been accomplished. There was no need to linger. The crowd dispersed like startled birds. Sierra quickly found the spare key and let herself into the office. Morgan, are you okay?" She saw her sister huddled on the floor. "Why are you wrapped up like this? It's not even that cold. You'll make yourself sick." As the youngest of the sisters after Caleb, Sierra had always been the most pampered, used to getting her own way. But now, seeing her once strong older sister so broken, she felt a surge of empathy and pain. And all of it was because of Jax. Sierra shook her head, her eyes filled with a tangled mess of regret and confusion. She gently pulled the clothes off Morgan. "Morgan, I think Jax hates us," she whispered. "In all the years he was back with the family, what did we do to him? Do you even remember? Take me, for example. When Jax and I started at Kingston, I was always out partying. Clubs were just the beginning. I loved street racing on my motorcycle." As Sierra spoke, Morgan's vacant eyes finally showed a flicker of life. She looked at her younger sister, seeming to listen. Sierra continued, her voice soft. "It was the second semester of freshman year. I was about to sneak out to go racing again, and, just like always, Jack stopped me. 'Sierra,' he said, 'please don't sneak out to race tonight. If the school finds out, you'll get a disciplinary mark.' At the time, Sierra was a thrill-seeker, wild and rebellious. Seeing Jax blocking her path filled her with annoyance. She shoved him away. 'What are you so afraid of, Jax? So what if I get a mark? You're on the student council, aren't you? I'm your sister. You could just cover for me. Now, get out of my way. Don't block me from my dreams.' Young and reckless, Sierra had casually dismissed his concerns, expecting him to clean up her messes. Jax frowned. When his gentle pleading didn't work, he pulled out a strawberry cake he had carefully made himself. 'Sierra, if you promise not to go out tonight, I'll give you your favorite strawberry cake.' Jax was practically destitute at school. He lived on instant ramen and cheap bread. But the cake in his hands was exquisite. It had rich, delicate cream, and the strawberries decorating it were large, plump, and a vibrant, glossy red. They looked expensive. He was frugal with himself, but for his sisters, his family, and Chloe, he always gave his absolute best. He thought the cake he'd prepared with such care would be enough to make her stay. But his naive, pathetic gesture only made Sierra more disgusted. She glanced disdainfully at the cake he held out to her like a precious treasure. 'Who wants your stupid strawberry cake?' she sneered. 'It looks just like you, drenched in the stench of poverty.' Jax's knuckles went white. The hand holding the cake trembled. He had scrimped and saved for a week, spent 3 months working part-time at a bakery just to learn how to make this cake. And in his sister's eyes, it was worthless. He looked down, his eyes full of disappointment. His hand loosened, and the cake was about to fall. But in the next moment, on some strange impulse, Sierra reached out and steadied his hand, saving the teetering cake. Instantly, a bright spark of hope lit up in Jax's eyes. Sierra was stunned for a moment, moved by his quick change in mood. Jax! He was so easy to please. A small kindness, and he looked like he'd been given the world. Then, Sierra spoke again. 'Jax, isn't strawberry your favorite too? If you eat this entire cake right now, I won't go racing tonight.' Jax stood frozen. 'My favorite?' No, the one who loved strawberries, the one who shared her taste, was Caleb. But Sierra only ever remembered Caleb's favorites. just like everyone else in the family. Jax paused, wanting to say something, but he saw the impatience in her eyes as she prepared to leave. In the end, he obediently ate the entire strawberry cake right in front of her, swallowing the words he wanted to say. As long as she didn't go to that dangerous racing spot, it was worth it. As Sierra recounted the story, a burning pain spread through her chest. Regret and self-loathing bloomed like a poison ivy. A choked sigh escaped her trembling lips. What happened then? Morgan asked, her voice raspy. The next day, the guys I was supposed to race with, they all died in a landslide. At the exact spot I was supposed to go. Sierra's voice cracked. Jack saved my life, and I suspected him. I forced him to take the blame for so many things. For 4 years, he was still good to me, even with a sister like me. I deserve to be punished for this, Morgan. She looked at her sister. Jax is retaliating because none of us are innocent. I'm glad to see you're okay, but I have to go see him now. A person has to pay for their mistakes. I failed him so many times before. Now, whether he accepts it or not, I'm going to try and make it up to him. After comforting Morgan, Sierra left. She went to a bakery. She, who had never done a day of manual labor in her life, who had always believed her hands were destined for extreme sports, began a chaotic, clumsy effort in the bakery kitchen. She gave the owner all the money she had on her. She failed a dozen times before she managed to create a cake that was even remotely presentable. Sierra was sore and exhausted. She looked at her creation and finally managed a weak, satisfied smile. Jax, I'm so sorry, she whispered. Back then, you must have worked so hard to learn how to make such a perfect cake, and I called it pathetic. Now that I've tried it myself, I finally understand how much effort and sweat you put into it. This time, can I be the one to win you back? A small smile touched her lips. Even though she looked like a mess, filthy, her hair a disaster, her smile was genuine. Her happiness made her forget the burns on her hands and the cuts on her fingers. She didn't even bother to bandage them. She just wanted to see Jax, to give him the surprise strawberry cake, and to beg for his forgiveness. With a heart full of trepidation, she arrived at the gates of Moonshadow Estate. But she was told that Jax and Lily weren't home. They had gone to the Astor family estate. That place was a living hell, and Jax's status would never be accepted by the Astor elders. Wouldn't he be in terrible danger there? Sierra's heart clenched with anxiety. She grabbed the cake and rushed to her new destination. She had to go to the Astor estate herself. Even if her status was nothing but an ant in their eyes, she couldn't let Jax feel like he had no family to back him up. Jax, she thought this time, what if I'm the one to protect you? Can you forgive me? Will you accept me? The Astor family estate. The ancestral hall. Before Lily took over, the Astor dynasty was built on rigid tradition. The ancestral hall was a sacred space. Family law was absolute, and clan rules were the chains that bound every member. But now, they had a heretical, autocratic ruler sitting in the family head and clan chief seat. She might be young, but within the intricate web of the family, her seniority was shockingly high. It wasn't just younger people like Chloe Vance who had to call her Annie. There were plenty of old men who had to respectfully call her great-aunt as well. And now, Lily was brazenly ignoring Cornelius Astor and sitting in the main seat. The old man was so furious the veins on his forehead bulged, but there was nothing he could do. He had already ceded the position of clan elder and family head. Even with his age and seniority, he was now forced to sit in the seat beside Lily. His seat? Cornelius, leaning on his cane and supported by his butler, started to walk toward his usual spot. The seat to Lily's right, the second most important position, reserved for the person with the most power in the family besides the head. But he stopped dead in his tracks. He watched as Lily took Jax by the hand and led him directly to that very seat. Jax sat down, his chin held high, the very picture of a smug boy toy drunk on borrowed power. Cornelius felt another surge of rage, enough to make him cough up blood. He gave his trusted butler, Sean, a pointed look. Sean knew this was a suicide mission, but with all the clan elders and distinguished guests watching, he couldn't just let the old patriarch sit in a lesser seat. In the world of New York's old money families, tradition was paramount. The seating arrangement passed down by the ancestors could not be so easily discarded. So, feeling as though he were walking to his doom, Sean spoke. Mr. Pierce, my apologies for the impertinence, but Mr. Astor has a small request. Would it be possible for you to perhaps move? He never finished the word seats. From the main seat, Lily's brow furrowed. A cold, murderous glare shot across the room. You know it's impertinent, so why are you asking? She said, her voice like ice. Move? Is your neck uncomfortable? Does your head want to find a new home? Lily sat with a posture of practiced elegance. the high slit of her chi-pow revealing a tantalizing length of her leg. But the casual, terrifying authority radiating from her was so intense that no one dared to look at her for more than a second. It wasn't a joke. You might actually lose your eyeballs. Ahem. My apologies, Miss Astor. I must have had a dizzy spell. I was speaking nonsense, Sean stammered, quickly retreating to Cornelius's side. If you angered this woman, she would genuinely end your life. Sean had backed down. No one else dared to question Jax, sitting in the second most powerful seat in the family. A boy toy. How could he possibly be worthy of such a position? He should be standing beside Lily, serving her. But as the guests watched in astonishment, the first thing Lily did after sitting down was signal for a servant to bring a cushion. She had them place it on Jax's chair, then leaned toward him, her voice surprisingly gentle. Jax, the mahogany is hard. This silk cushion will be more comfortable for you. The crowd was dumbstruck. What in the world is this treatment? Was Jax Pierce really just a boy toy? A live-in sperm bank for a contractual marriage? Jax himself was a little overwhelmed, but after weeks of being pampered by the Astor heiress, he'd grown accustomed to it. He jutted his chin out slightly and nodded. Lily Bug, I love you. After he said it, the tips of his ears flushed a bright pink. The blush in Lily's eyes was a potent drug, a stimulus that made her want to do unspeakable things to him. But now was not the time. Lily suppressed her urges and reached out to stroke his cheek, her fingertips tracing his lips with a possessive touch. Jax, I wanted you to sit in this seat for a long time, she said, her voice clear and carrying through the hall. This is the Astor Ancestral Hall. The main seat is mine, and you are my husband. This seat is yours by right. Everything the Astors have, I share with you. Her declaration was bold and public, cementing Jax's absolute importance to her. Cornelius could no longer. Stunt. The cane in his hand threatened to punch a hole in the floor. He finally understood. Lily had avoided the estate, had let him live in peace, not out of respect, but because she simply couldn't be bothered to deal with him. The real reason was that she hadn't yet fully captured Jax Pierce. What was so special about this man? What charm did he possess that could make his granddaughter, a woman known for her cold, calculating ruthlessness, lose her mind over him, and become so violent? My words also serve as an official announcement of Jax's status, Lily continued, her voice ringing with authority. Jax and I are husband and wife. We are one. If any of you dares to bully Jax, you're making an enemy of Lily Astor. She turned her aide. Nathan, bring in the consequences for bullying my Jax. Jax was floating on a cloud of indulgence. He was so damn happy, ecstatic, over the moon. In his past life, he must have been kicked in the head by a donkey to give up this powerhouse of a wife for Chloe Vance. Being the husband of a billionaire heiress, being spoiled to death. What could be better? At Lily's command, Nathan waved to the staff outside. A moment later, Uncle Victor's nearly lifeless body was carried in. Seeing the bloodied crotch and the still stuffed mouth, Jax felt a pang of guilt and looked away. The sight was too graphic. He couldn't let it tarnish his wife's eyes. Weren't you going to discipline Uncle, Grandfather? You can begin, Lily said, settled in her seat, a picture of calm, elegant grace. She only moved to lean slightly toward Jax when she needed to tend to him. Otherwise, her mere presence was enough to suffocate the room. When did I say I was going to punish your uncle? Cornelius stammered. He's already been tortured like this by you, and you won't even let him go to the hospital? Are you trying to kill him? Lily, I know you still resent the family, but don't forget, your mother was brought back today. If things get too ugly here, what will she think? Cornelius was trying to appeal to what little humanity he thought Lily had left. Even though he should have been used to her cruelty by now, this was his own son. He had to protect him. Is that so? A flicker of something cold and unreadable crossed Lily's eyes at the mention of her mother, Susanna Sinclair Astor. Are you threatening me with my mother, grandfather? That woman. She had been cruel to Lily, yet on the night her own father was about to send her away to the organization, she had grabbed Lily's hand and they had run. They fled through thorny woods, deep in the mountains where information traveled slowly, a desperate escape from the patriarch's grasp. The woman was so frail, but in that moment, Lily had seen pure determination in her eyes. Lily, my sweet girl, it's Mommy's fault, she had whispered. I failed to protect you and your sister. I've already lost Luna. I can't lose you too, my last daughter. This time, I will protect you. Lily hadn't understood then. She was only 13. She hadn't seen her older sister, Luna, since she was 6. Her father had said he'd sent Luna to study abroad, but why hadn't she come home in years? Then, at 12, her mother had heartlessly sent her to the heirs conclave, a place where she was paraded around for the amusement of future, powerful young masters. She was young and wasn't defiled, but she had endured endless humiliation. She didn't understand why her brothers got to enjoy all the resources of the Astor dynasty, while she, a daughter, was indoctrinated with the belief that Astor women never lived past 25 and had to fight for survival at the conclave. She was no longer her parents' little princess. Lily was smart. She remembered that her sister had disappeared on her 13th birthday. She had been planning her own escape before then, but before she could act, her normally stern mother had dragged her away. Perhaps, in that moment, she had been moved. At least her mother loved her. At least her mother couldn't bear for her to disappear, right? Lily had tried to deceive herself. But then, her father Ronan's helicopter had appeared, its searchlight pinning them down. He descended, his face etched with worry, and embraced them both. Lily, Susanna, you're safe. Let's go home. Lily, bewildered, still wanted to run, but she saw the look in her mother's eyes shift from terror to a fawning, gentle submission. She watched, horrified, as her mother nestled into the arms of the man she claimed to despise and smiled at Lily. Let's go home, sweetie. Your father is here to take us home. You can't be so willful and run away with mommy anymore. Lily froze. She stared into Susanna's eyes in disbelief, a salty taste on her lips. It was tears, tracing a bitter path down her cheek. Defeated, Lily went home, missing her best chance to escape. Years later, after she had fought her way back into the family, she learned from Mr. Sterling that her mother had been diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder the year she was born. The mother, who had run away with her, was the primary personality. The one who had sold her and snuggled up to Ronan Astor was the secondary one. The hatred Lily had nurtured for years suddenly felt like punching a fist into cotton. She was supposed to hate her, but she couldn't. In the end, Lily had simply sent Susanna to a private psychiatric hospital and left her there. Her feelings for her mother were a tangled, complicated mess. Cornelius, seeing the flicker of emotion in Lily's eyes, smiled with satisfaction. Lily, you wouldn't want to upset your mother, would you? Her illness requires peace and quiet, making such a commotion at the estate. Lily lowered her eyes, resting her forehead in her hand. After a few seconds of thought, she looked at Nathan. The noise here is too loud. It might disturb Madame Sinclair. Have the doctor give her 2 shots of a sedative. Grandfather is right. We can't frighten her. With that, no one dared to argue further. Cornelius was speechless. He didn't dare say another word. This granddaughter was long past his control. There was probably nothing left in the world that could restrain her. Nathan gestured for someone to handle it. He then walked directly up to Cornelius and held out his hand. If you please, Mr. Astor. The tone was polite, but the gesture was thick with condescending menace. Victor had been dragged into the center of the ancestral hall, lying weakly on the floor. Cornelius had no choice. He took the disciplinary cane from Sean. This cane, he had originally prepared it for Lily. Now it was going to fall on his own son. It was more painful than being struck himself. He had no choice. He raised the cane and, gritting his teeth, brought it down. Crack! F! Help me! Victor screamed, and something was squeezed out his mouth. The onlookers recoiled in disgust. Cornelius was stunned. Lily, you didn't do this to your uncle. Who did this to my son? Who? He turned to Victor. Victor, tell me, who would dare to torture you like this in the Astor estate, in front of the ancestors and the entire clan? I will get to the bottom of this. Cornelius was livid. He was a man. He knew this humiliation was tantamount to castration. Such a cruel act had to have been done by another man. Lily would find it too dirty to do herself. Victor, jolted back to his senses by the pain, suddenly looked up. His eyes landed on Jax, and he started scrambling backward like a fat, writhing worm. Help! Save me! I'll never be led astray by lust again, I swear. He scuttled away, leaving a trail of blood from his crotch. The crowd, horrified, followed his terrified gaze to Jax. This boy toy? Impossible. He looked so refined and gentle, with a kind and polite demeanor. He looked like someone who was well protected by Lily. How could he be so savage? Victor must be hallucinating. Sir, you must be mistaken, Nathan said smoothly. This is Mr. Jax Pierce, the young Mrs. New husband. He is a gentleman, kind, and well-mannered. Nathan trailed off, finding it hard to continue the lie. Ahem. In short, it's impossible that our Mr. Pierce would bully you, because he's just too nice. Nathan blurted out the ridiculous line, mentally patting himself on the back. Victor was now a sobbing mess. I'm the nice one here. Dad, you have to stand up for me. It was this boy toy. Anyway, I was the nice one, and I got taken advantage of. Jax raised an eyebrow, his tone light. Taken advantage of? Sounds like you were just trying to get a piece. I guess from now on, you'll always be on the bottom. A wave of understanding swept through the crowd. Oh, so that's what happened. Victor tried to make a move on Jax and got his ass handed to him? The man had balls, trying to steal a man from Lily Astor. As expected, Lily's cold, beautiful eyes darkened. A murderous smirk played on her lips. Bury him. Nathan snapped to attention. Right away. Another great day for my KPI quota. Lily spoke the words calmly, as if she weren't ordering a man's execution. And it was clear she now held absolute power in the Astor family. However, there was one person she still had to respect and fear. And recently, that person happened to be away. Thank you all for coming. Please excuse the family drama, Lily announced, rising from her seat. We have prepared a small reception to honor the memory of my sister, Luna, and to celebrate my grandfather's birthday. Please follow me. Her black cheapao clung to her perfect figure, a perfect blend of seduction and menace. Her invitation was so graciously delivered that the high society guests felt they couldn't refuse. But a birthday banquet in a house draped with funeral wreaths was a powerful statement. Then again, remembering the explosion by the lake, suddenly the wreaths seemed like a minor detail. After the guests were settled, Lily didn't leave the ancestral hall. Once Cornelius had fainted from shock, she had him carried away. As for his nephew, Vincent, his life was likely ruined. And her own brother, Julian, had been lucky. At the critical moment, he had pulled 2 bodyguards in front of him to absorb the blast. He'd survived, but with severe internal injuries. As Nathan reported all this, Lily was already leading Jax into the most secret part of the hall, a chamber so private that even Nathan didn't dare follow. Jax was curious, but he understood this was a gesture of absolute trust. Lily saw him as family, as her partner, and was bringing him into the heart of her world. He wasn't going to make the same mistake he did in his past life. Back then, Lily had also brought him to this secret chamber. But his reaction had been different. It seemed she was opening up to him much earlier this time. Lily led him through a hidden passage into a dark room. Jax, when I said I would share everything the Astors have with you, it wasn't an empty promise, she said, her voice soft. I know you want to grow, to stand beside me through your own efforts, and that's wonderful. But we are husband and wife. Just think of it as me holding on to these things for you. When you're ready to accept them, they will be yours by right. And this can be the foundation for your own ventures. In business, it's hard to succeed if you don't use the resources you have. And I will be the one to support you, always. Lily lowered her gaze and stepped closer to Jax. In that moment, her sharp edges seemed to melt away. She was like any young woman in love, laying out all her treasures before him. Jax felt a strange sensation in his stomach. He'd get used to this. Besides, was accepting things from your wife really being a freeloader? He wasn't about to repeat the mistakes of his youth, wasting his youth on hardship when he could have been enjoying the good life. He wasn't going down that road again. It was time to cling tightly to his billionaire wife's silk stocking-clad legs. In his past life, Lily had said much the same thing, offering to support him. But back then, he had dismissed her one-sided affection, shoved her away, and fled. He hated the Astor estate, where everyone seemed to be against him, and he naturally rejected this so-called secret chamber. Jax, what's wrong? Lily noticed his distraction, worried he was still unwilling to accept her help. But what she decided to give, she would give. She opened her hand. In her palm lay a blood jade pendant, exquisitely carved with a lion's sigil. It was clearly an ancient, valuable piece. He hadn't seen this pendant in his past life. It's nothing, I'm just a little hungry, Jax said, using a lame excuse. We can eat later. You brought me here for a reason, don't worry about me. Lily, however, took him seriously. You're hungry? I have something here, you can have a snack. She produced a small, gold foil-wrapped chocolate ball. Jax took it, holding it in his palm, his attention fixed on Lily. He could see how serious she was, and he lost his appetite. Lily, what is this pendant? I don't know much about jade, but I can tell this is a priceless antique. Is this for me? Jax felt a little lightheaded. He was prepared to be a kept man, but the casual gifts Lily gave him were enough to knock him out. He wasn't even that greedy. Of course, he wasn't just okay with jade. He was an expert, and he could tell this blood jade pendant was extraordinarily rare and valuable. Yes, and more, Lily said, placing the pendant in his hand. True high-quality jade was warm to the touch, and its smooth texture made Jax not want to let go. Jax, I know that after you disappeared from the Pierce family, your father acquired a fine piece of blood jade, she began, recounting a past he already knew. He had it made into pendants, one for each of his children. There was one for you, of course. But since you were gone, they gave your share to Caleb. With a double portion of jade, Caleb's pendant was carved into a tiger emblem. The materials and craftsmanship are superb. It's currently valued at around $30 million. She had known this for a long time. She had wanted to get revenge, but Jax had stopped her. He cared about the Pierces, would defend them to the death. Over time, she had abandoned her plans to destroy them. But the injustices her Jax had suffered at their hands, she would not let them stand. A blood jade pendant? The heirloom of New York City's #1 dynasty. Who could produce something more valuable than this? Jax was stunned. He had long since accepted this fact. His heart had long grown cold to it. But here was Lily, laying it all out as if it were a precious memory she had carefully preserved. Was she compensating him? But Lily's own childhood had been filled with pain. Yet she chose to heal his wounds first. It was as if she intended to raise him all over again, to give him everything his own family had denied him. The Heiress's love was hidden in the details, yet it surged through every corner of his world. Jax, they didn't treasure you because they are blind, Lily said, stepping closer. She saw a stray lock of hair on his forehead and gently tucked it back, her movements tender, yet intensely possessive. What you lost in the past, I'll give back to you. And in that moment, Jax understood. This wasn't just about compensating him for his past. It was about her possessiveness. She wanted her mark to cover his entire history. She wanted to own him completely and utterly. And right now, Jax was more than willing to be owned. Lily, you're so good to me. How can I ever repay you? He murmured, leaning in and planting a kiss on her cheek. Fortunately, we're husband and wife. I can repay you. Anytime. His words were laced with a suggestive ambiguity that sent a jolt of desire through Lily. Oh, and how does my darling plan to repay me? She whispered, her eyes lighting up with a sudden, excited gleam, like a little girl who had just been given candy. Will you pay me back with billions of dollars? Or will you be a good boy, chained up in a little black room, letting me do whatever I want? Ahem. Steady now. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, Jax said, cutting her off with another quick peck on her other cheek. Inventory is a little low at the moment. I'm afraid you'll have to wait a bit. He expertly stroked her hair, his soothing gesture a practiced art. Lily, teased and hungry, couldn't resist. She stood on her toes and planted a firm, possessive bite on his neck, leaving a vivid red mark. Her very own rose metal. Back to business, she said, her voice husky. The pendant's value isn't just in the jade itself. Its true uniqueness lies in the fact that it can open all the secret vaults of the Astor clan. For example, she took Jax's hand and placed the pendant into a hidden indentation on the wall. An eerie, abstract painting on the wall flipped over, revealing a high-security, precision-engineered door. Lily stepped forward and opened it. As Jax watched, he couldn't help but think of that classic movie scene where the hero sees a vault full of money and his legs turn to jelly. He felt his own legs getting a little weak. Because what lay before him wasn't just towers of cash. It was gold. Gold bars, gold bricks, diamonds, jewelry, priceless works of art. A treasure trove beyond his wildest imagination. Jax, Lily said softly, this is just a small part of our shared assets. Do you like it? Like it? Jax wanted to weep. In his past life, he had been one step away from being the richest man in the world. What was he even fighting for? All he had to do was hold on to Lily, and he could live like a king for 1,000 lifetimes. Jax stared at the mountain of jewels and gold bricks. He glanced at the little gold-wrapped chocolate Lily had given him. A moment ago, he thought it would be nice to have a piece of gold that big. Now, comparing the foil-wrapped candy to the stacks of gold bars in front of him, it seemed a little small. Comparison really was the thief of joy. He was getting spoiled. I like it, he said obediently, but I like you the most. No kidding, he thought. Hugging my psycho wife is the ultimate path to wealth. Lily nodded, gesturing for him to come closer. And Jax, you got that phrase wrong earlier. She leaned in, her voice a low purr. It's not that nice guys get taken advantage of. It's that nice guys get kissed. A kiss landed flawlessly on his lips, followed by a much more ferocious plunder. Pinned against a wall of gold bars, Jax was trapped. But he was more than happy to be. Outside the Astor estate, Sierra stood with the strawberry cake she had so carefully made. Normally so meticulous about her appearance that she put on makeup just to take out the trash, she was now a disheveled mess. Her hands were covered in cuts and burns, but she seemed oblivious to the pain. Her eyes were bloodshot, her body exhausted, but she was fueled by manic energy. She was giddy with anticipation. She couldn't stop imagining Jax's face when he saw that she, his always pampered fifth sister, had personally baked him a strawberry cake. How moved would he be? Would he accept her apology? Would he forgive her? Filled with nervous hope, she arrived at the gates of the Astor estate. The grounds were still draped in funereal white, and the guests had already gone inside, leaving the entrance eerily quiet. But the estate was still heavily guarded. Her ragged, suspicious appearance as she paced outside quickly drew the attention of a bodyguard. "Who are you?" the guard demanded, blocking her path. "This is the Astor estate. No visitors without an invitation." Sierra had expected this. "I'm Jax Pierce's fifth sister," she explained quickly. "Please go tell him that his sister is here to see him. It's urgent." As she said Jax's name, she could have sworn she saw a flash of fear in the guard's eyes. But that couldn't be right. What was there to be afraid of? Jax was just an ordinary college student who hadn't even graduated yet. "You're looking for our Mr. Pierce," the guard scoffed. "Tisk, look at you. You look like a beggar. You got some nerve, trying to claim kinship with our boss. Shameless." The guards at the estate had all been replaced by Nathan's professional team from Moonshadow Estate. They knew Jax's story better than the old Astor staff. "Get lost. You think we're stupid? Our Mr. Pierce doesn't have any sisters or parents. He's an orphan. He came to Moonshadow Estate all alone to marry the boss. If he really had a family, a sister, why would he show up on his wedding day all by himself, with nothing but a bag of worn-out clothes and not a single valuable thing to his name?" The guard said mockingly. It was the unvarnished truth. Another guard, who hadn't heard the full story, chimed in. "The new boss is that pitiful? Sounds like he was worse off than a beggar before the marriage. And now he suddenly has family. Probably just saw that our boss struck it rich and came crawling out of the woodwork for a handout." A third guard added indignantly. "People like that are the worst. If she weren't a woman, I'd drag her into an alley and beat her senseless." The grenade at the lake had effectively straightened out all their backbones. In this family, no one dared to cross the living embodiment of death. Yeah, exactly. If the new boss really had family, who would let their precious son, their precious brother, suffer like that? Hilarious. Fifth sister. A sister who doesn't even show up for his wedding? Does she even deserve to be called a sister? The bodyguard's words were a brutal assault, each sentence a sharp spike driving into Sierra's heart. She looked down, her fingertips trembling. Their words painted a vivid, agonizing picture in her mind. Jax, all alone, arriving at the Astor's den of vipers to take Caleb's place. And what were they doing then? They were at the hospital, holding a vigil for Caleb, their minds solely focused on his well-being. Before Jax left, the entire family had forced him to give 2 bags of blood for Caleb. What was Jax thinking at that moment? Did he resent them all? No wonder he had come back to sever ties. He had completely lost hope in his parents and sisters. The more Sierra thought about it, the more she felt herself breaking down. The pain in her heart was like a long-buried razor blade suddenly twisting in her soul. So Jax had suffered that much when he took Caleb's place. And what had she, his older sister, ever done besides take his kindness for granted? "I'm a terrible person," she thought. Her face went ashen. With a voice full of bitter pleading, she said, "I really am his sister. Please, just tell him I'm here. I'll wait for him." She corrected herself, a new wave of fear washing over her. "No, Jax is already being bullied here. I have to go in. Where is he? I need to see him, to make sure he's safe." She looked up, determined. She was afraid to face him, but the Astor estate was a lion's den. She had failed to protect him before. This time, even if it cost her her life, she would get him out of here safely. Her words were met with stifled laughter from the bodyguards. The new boss, getting bullied at the estate? They couldn't begin to explain who the real danger was. All they could do was stick to the script. "Get lost. A beggar like you has no business asking for our boss," one of them said dismissively. "He's a busy man. He doesn't have time to see you." He shot her a glare and returned to his post. Just another beggar, putting on a pathetic act. Rejected, Sierra felt a wave of humiliation. She knew that even if she were dressed in her finest clothes, her status wouldn't get her past these gates. So, she simply sat down on the curb, deciding to wait. Jax would have to come out eventually. He couldn't stay in that house for long. The guard saw her stubbornness, and, deciding it wasn't worth the effort to argue with a homeless woman, just shot her another dirty look and ignored her. Sierra curled up by the side of the road, clutching the strawberry cake, a genuine smile finally gracing her face. She was so excited, so eager to see the surprise on Jax's face. But fate had other plans. Soon, a light drizzle began to fall. Sierra tried to take shelter under the eaves of the gatehouse, but the guards shooed her away, disgusted by her filthy appearance. She found a small nook that offered minimal protection. But if she sheltered herself, the cake would be ruined by the rain. After a moment's hesitation, she made her choice. She hugged the cake tightly to her chest and turned her back to the rain, letting the cold drops soak through her clothes. Jax loves strawberry cake, she whispered to herself. His sister made this for him. He'll love it. It can't get wet. Jax can't eat a ruined cake. She huddled by the road, her clothes and hair soaked through. A gust of wind nearly blew her over. She was a pitiful sight. One of the guards glanced at her coldly, feeling no sympathy. You reap what you sow, he thought. Atonement was just a way to soothe your own guilt after the damage was done. The wounds were already inflicted. No amount of apology could erase them. But some people will never understand that. Inside the estate, after being thoroughly loved by his wife, Jax was finally released. Lily fastened the blood jade pendant around his neck, a tangible symbol of their shared power and fortune. They emerged from the secret chamber. Remembering Jax had said he was hungry, Lily had already ordered a meal to be prepared in her private courtyard. The old estate was classically elegant, the rain turning the garden into a living poem. The guests were being entertained elsewhere. Lily led Jax by the hand through covered walkways to her personal wing. Jade Vine Court, Jax said, looking at the name carved into the entrance. That's a unique name. It had a classical, elegant feel. Susanna Jade is my mother's name, Lily explained. This courtyard was a gift from her when I was 5. She pushed open the doors. The style inside was completely different from the rest of the estate. The outside was classical, but Lily's courtyard was a modern take on traditional design, with flowing water features and a serene, beautiful layout. And it was filled with deep purple roses, a mysterious, elegant, and utterly luxurious sight. Lily, you and your mother. Jax began, then trailed off. He remembered from his past life that Lily's relationship with her mother was terrible, but she would still secretly visit her in the psychiatric hospital, never letting her mother know she was there. From Susanna's perspective, her daughter was a cold-hearted monster who didn't care if she lived or died. Mr. Sterling had been dispatched to the estate earlier to help prepare for their stay and was currently overseeing the reception in the main hall. When he heard that the young master and miss would be dining together, he had quickly prepared a meal of all Jax's favorite foods. He and Nathan were now waiting discreetly by the door. Hearing Jax so openly mention Madame Sinclair, both men's expressions darkened. But Lily was unfazed. She's sick, she said, without a hint of evasion. A mental illness. She doesn't recognize me anymore. Most of the time, she's confused. She doesn't even know how old I am. Her frankness was a relief to both Nathan and Mr. Sterling. The boss hadn't lost her mind. It seemed Jax's calming presence was working wonders. Let's eat first, Lily said. Nathan, has Madame Sinclair woken up? As they ate, Jax could see that Lily was preoccupied. This was the place she had grown up. No child could be completely detached from their mother. He and Lily were the same in that way, with no one left to rely on. His own adoptive mother, Eleanor, had chosen to abandon him. Lily's mother had simply forgotten her. She just woke up, Nathan said, touching his earpiece. She's looking for the young master and Miss Luna. She's heading toward this courtyard now. Jax looked up, surprised. Julian's fate was still uncertain, and yet it seemed his mother's relationship with him was stronger. What would happen if she found out her son was nearly killed by her daughter and son-in-law? Let her in, Lily said calmly. I'm married. She should meet my husband. Jax, do you mind that my mother has issues? Don't worry, with me here, she's guaranteed to have a breakdown. But I'll protect you. Jax was confused. Guaranteed to have a breakdown? What the hell does that mean? Soon, a tall, elegant woman was led into the room by Mr. Sterling. Her expression was aloof, her skin as pale as porcelain. Even after all these years, her beauty was undeniable. She was tastefully dressed, a string of lustrous pearls around her neck adding to her air of nobility. Jax could see where Lily got her stunning looks and her innate grace. She didn't look like she had a mental illness at all. Then the next moment, Susanna Sinclair asked her sat down in the empty chair between Jax and Lily. She reached out, grasped Jax's chin, and leaned in close, her eyes sweeping over him with a cold, critical gaze. I told you, I'm not interested in blind dates, she announced. What's so great about getting married? Although, the quality of this candidate is acceptable. He can keep me company tonight. Jax. Lily's expression darkened. She stared at her mother's hand on Jax's chin, her voice like ice. Mother, that man is mine. Susanna released him, but her words were sharp. What's yours or mine? Who gave you permission to call me mother? We're besties, don't cross the line. He's just a man. You can have him first, I don't mind. Jax. WTF. His mother-in-law's mental state was genuinely, certifiably insane. He conceded defeat. M.I.am. Please don't, Jack said, trying to find his footing. I'm your daughter's husband. Your son-in-law. My name is Jax Pierce. He decided politeness was the best course of action. Despite Lily's detachment, he had seen the flicker of hope in her eyes when her mother appeared. Lily must have once been a little girl who longed for her mother's love, he thought. Enough. Don't you dare try to tarnish my bestie's innocence, you little brat. You won't get past me, Madam Sinclair declared, waving a dismissive hand. Mr. Sterling, show him out. Her unpredictable mood swings gave Jax a profound appreciation for Lily's predicament. His mother-in-law was the one who had hurt her, but she was now mentally ill. It was impossible to know whether to hate her, resent her, or pity her. I've already been thoroughly tarnished, Jax thought, and he was the one who'd been tossed around and exhausted. Bestie, it's raining outside. Why don't you stay the night? Madam Sinclair said, her mood shifting again. We can sleep together. It's been so long since we had a proper all-night chat. Her words put Nathan, Mr. Sterling, and Jax on high alert. Lily, however, seemed unfazed. She could dispose of Susanna as easily as crushing an ant. But seeing her mother's innocent expression, her mind clearly regressed to her rebellious, carefree youth, stirred something in Lily. She had never known much maternal love. What was her mother like when she was young? She was curious. Still, she wasn't used to anyone sleeping near her besides Jax. She could listen to her talk for a while, then go back to her room with Jax. All right, it's settled, Madam Sinclair announced. We sisters will sleep together tonight. As for him, have Mr. Sterling arrange a room for him far away from us. We can't have him eavesdropping on our secrets. She took Lily's arm. Lily's body went rigid. She wasn't used to being touched by anyone else. Even her mother made her recoil. Only Jax could make her relax. Night fell. Jax ended up in a separate room from Lily. It was a custom from his adoptive family's hometown that even married couples didn't share a bed when visiting the wife's family. Since Madam Sinclair wanted to sleep with Lily, he had reluctantly agreed. But after weeks of having a warm, fragrant body in his arms every night, tonight he was alone. Jax couldn't sleep. I miss my wife. I really miss my wife. I want to kiss my wife, hug my wife, make love to my wife. He tossed and turned, finally giving in and sending Lily a message. Jax, Lilybug, you asleep? The reply was instantaneous, as if she'd been waiting. Empress Lily, not sleeping. Thinking about sleeping with you. Jax shot up in bed, his heart pounding. Since his rebirth, he and Lily had been inseparable. This brief separation had only intensified his longing for her. A nagging, craving gnawed at him, his mind filled with images of her cute, pouting smile, her cold, imperious threats, and the roguish look in her eyes as she tied him to the bed, ready to have her way with him. Ahem, stop thinking about that. If he kept this up, his little brother downstairs would have a breakdown. Jax, sleep with me? Jax, Lily baby, we're at the estate. Shouldn't we be a little more restrained? He felt a flush of embarrassment. The master bedroom at Moonshadow Estate had been upgraded multiple times in his past life. Its soundproofing was top-notch. But this old house, he couldn't make any guarantees. Empress Lily, can't be restrained. I'm going crazy thinking about you. I just want to wrap myself around you and kiss you senseless. Empress Lily, Madam Sinclair is asleep. I'm coming to you now. Lily couldn't wait. She threw on a robe and was about to leave the room, but then an idea struck her. She closed the door, opened the window, and a lithe figure in red slipped out, melting into the night. Jax blinked, unable to believe how eager she was. He paced by the door, ready to let her in, completely unaware that a soft, red shadow had already slipped in through his own window and was now nestled in his bed. He waited with anticipation. Suddenly, another message popped up on his phone. Empress Lily, sorry Jax, my mother woke up. See you tomorrow. Lily was playing with his heart like a roller coaster. Jax, good night, wifey. He was disappointed, but there was nothing he could do. In the dimly lit room, despite the cool October weather, he felt hot and restless. He stripped off his robe, leaving him in just his boxer shorts, and slid into bed. The sheets were warm and carried her familiar, intoxicating scent. He figured he'd spent so much time with her that her scent had rubbed off on him. Yeah, that's it. It's not like I'm obsessed or anything. He was a married man. It was perfectly normal to think about your wife at night. The bed was huge, at least 10 feet wide. He rolled over to the other side. Suddenly, he felt a warm, soft touch. Jax froze, turning to stone in the bed. Hiss, that feeling in the middle of the night. It's just like the snake that coiled around me in my hospital dream. Shit. I'm being haunted again. But before he could scream, the snake expertly wrapped itself around him again. The blanket rose. A cascade of dark red hair appeared, followed by a familiar, beautiful face. Lily kissed his neck, her laughter a low, teasing chuckle. What are you so afraid of, Jax? Besides me, what other woman would dare to climb into your bed? Jax's racing heart slowed, then nearly stopped. Wait, back then, when I was sick and at rock bottom, the one who moved me to the VIP ward, the ghost who touched me all over in the middle of the night. Was that Lily? Damn, that's intense. So our story started that long ago. But with Lily's aggressive assault, Jax couldn't think straight. He shook his head and managed to ask, Lily, you lied to me? A smirk played on Lily's red lips. She assumed he was talking about her little game. She leaned close to his ear and kissed it. No, I didn't lie to my Jax, she whispered. Good boy. Lift the covers. You'll find your favorite surprise. Just as Jax was about to lift the blanket, his phone, still clutched in his hand, rang. Who would be calling at this hour? He irritably declined the call, but it immediately rang again, determined to ruin his night. Annoyed, he answered, his voice sharp. Who is it? Don't you know people have marital duties to attend to at this hour? The person on the other end paused, then a pitiful, tearful voice came through the speaker. Jax, do you really not want me anymore? You love me so much. I'm your white moonlight. It was Chloe Vance. I know I was wrong at the competition, but Caleb tricked me. The person I really care about is you. Chloe couldn't stand the whispers and stares at school anymore and had fled home. But once there, her mind was filled with images of the new Jax. Handsome, rich, powerful. He was devastatingly attractive. She felt herself falling for him. Jax loved me so much, she thought. He'll definitely come back to me. He only rejected me at the race to put on a show for my aunt, Lily. He had protected her in such a dangerous situation. How could she not be moved? Chloe, just because you're a maggot, don't assume the whole world is a dumpster, Jax said, his voice dripping with contempt. What makes you think I'd bother picking up someone else's worn-out, discarded trash? In my eyes, you're just a low-flying bee, a low bee. I already know you're a toad chasing a frog, ugly and playing games. So stop putting green paint on an old cucumber and pretending you're young and fresh. Get lost. If you're that bored, go find a factory and start sewing shoes.